The microphones have all been balanced. These now work not directionally, omnidirectionally. And the tall ones, you have to actually speak right into it or nobody's going to hear what you have to say. And then the next iteration is we're going to work on getting cameras so that we can do the broadcasting ourselves. And then also a tie-in so that Kathy can do her recording directly from the sound system. And then a tie-in with the audio visual. See the new projector? It actually fills the screen. Well, you'll see it in a little while. And then when you play something audio visual, you'll actually hear the sound. So
yay!
Hopefully you can hear it.
I'm excited.
So all council members are present. You know, and before we go really far, I just have to pause. I've known Sam Boyd for quite a while, a lot of years. And when she did not put her name in yesterday to run for re-election, I waited all day. And sure enough, Cindy's actually decided to retire.
Yay for me.
Good for you.
Yay.
Thank you for your, I say, nearly 20 years of service to the city.
But then who's
Who's
coming?
Thank you. All right, our pledge tonight will be led by Kathy Kresser, and opening remarks will be offered by John Goodman.
That's right.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity to gather in this city meeting. We're thankful for the leaders of this city that volunteer their time and talents to guide and direct the affairs of our city. We're grateful for the other volunteers that are behind the lines that just work hard and donate their time and their talents and sacrifice their families and other things in their life to make this a better city. We're grateful especially for this free land that we have to live in and for those in the military that protect our freedoms. Help us to be ever grateful for their efforts. Please bless us this night that we will show kindness to one another and think before we speak. Help us to use good judgment and discernment in what is said and to make good decisions in behalf of the progress of this city. And these favors and blessings we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes, we need to take item 10I and probably postpone that indefinitely, possibly in 2 weeks, but we'll know probably later tonight when we want to address that. And then we need an executive session to talk about personnel issues.
Okay, and where are we going to put the executive session?
It will be last on the agenda after we review the calendar.
Okay. Any other changes?
Nope.
Okay, there's one addition Kathy pointed out to me in item F on the third line where it says to submit the proposal to the voters. It should read in the November 3rd general election and then go on with the sentence. So when we get to that point, I think that's actually language that we need to include. All right, any other changes? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on the agenda.
I made a motion to approve tonight's agenda with the change that we remove agenda item 10I, add an executive session for after the meeting, and modify item F to read Utah County to submit to submit the proposal to voters in the November 3rd general election.
On November 3rd, 2015.
November 3rd, 2015 general election.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Sid, a second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, we'll have our open session now. If anyone from the public would like to address the council about an item that is either not an open session or not on the agenda, feel free to come up and state your name and address.
I'm already
Lisa.
standing. Do I have to talk into it, did you say? Hello? Lisa Coombs, 1742 East Cherokee Drive. Just a reminder, food trucks are out in force. We had a new one tonight that was absolutely delicious. I saw a few of you out there tonight, so thank you for supporting them. We also have Bon Oui out there tonight, so I don't know if you're going to get out of here in time, but you can head over and listen to the live band that's out there as well.
Lisa, can you give the times again if they come?
Yes, it's every Tuesday from 5 to 9, and it's just out at the Water Gardens Theater.
Okay, anyone else for the open session? Okay, we'll close the open session and come back here for consent items. We have the minutes. Were there any corrections or changes to the minutes?
I emailed one, I assume it got integrated.
Okay. Any others? Any discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion on the consent items.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent items.
I'll second.
Motion by Ben, second by Diana. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, I don't see anything under 7, board and commission appointments. So we'll go to item 8. We have presentations, and we're going to start with new employees. Chief, are you going to lead out? Yeah.
So I guess last week, our dispatch got a little confused on dates, so you met our new dispatchers last week, right? Okay. We also have 2 officers that I'd like to present to you. We've had a vacancy in our police department, and Bo Adamson, who was doing our paper service as a part-time position, has accepted a full-time position and taken that vacancy, and we feel fortunate to have him. He was well-trained and ready to go and step right in and hit the ground running. And Bo has, been an asset to this department from day one. And there was no question as to whether he was the right guy for the job. I love those hires where it's a no-brainer. And he's also a field artillery specialist. Did I get that right?
Yes.
E88? Oh, E4. Okay. So with the National Guard. So we're hoping he can get us out to let us see some things get blown up one of these days.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm born and raised in Highland, Utah, so just up the road. I have a lot of family and a lot of history here in Pleasant Grove. Any of the Walkers, their family, had some Walkers, family members as well. I just feel very fortunate to be here and to be part of this great community and to serve here, giving my best. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
thank you.
He'll be a good member of the team, fits right in. Skylar Winder, go ahead and stand up, Skylar. Skylar has accepted a position as our part-time court transport and paper service officer. So he took Bo's job. And Skylar is, if you want to know anything about barbecue and stuff like that, he was managing at Dickey's, and he's decided he wants to be a police officer for some reason. We haven't figured that out yet.
Good combo.
What, are you talking the pork and the?
You don't like your food? Bam.
Right.
No, sorry. Probably completely inappropriate.
Remember that comment came directly from me.
I'm just gonna shut up.
Hey, we've got thick skin, we've heard it all.
There you go.
You wanna,
Yeah, tell us about yourself.
From Orem and AF, graduated from AF. Like I said, I worked at Dickey's. It was really good food. If you ever want to know how to smoke your meats, just give me a call. I'm excited to work here. Big shoes to fill from Bo on the paper and transport, but I'm excited for the challenge and excited to meet every one of you guys. So.
Thank you.
thank you, Mayor and Council.
Mayor and Council, I have 2 employees to introduce. These 2 positions were opened by one Chief Sanderson's exit, and another was one of our lieutenants took a job nearer to his neighborhood, which is up on the south end of the state, up in the Roy area, Weber County. And he was one of our full-time lieutenants, but they offered him a job. He couldn't refuse. More money and a promotion. And so that opened up two positions. Pardon me? It was Britt Clark. So first, let me start with Paul Eddington. Paul has been one of our part-time employees for several years, and I think we finally get the opportunity to take or to partake of his expertise now as a full-time employee. Paul, tell us about yourself.
Like she said, I've worked part-time for this department for about 5-6 years. I'm just so excited to finally get a chance to be a full-time member and be able to protect and serve the community in the greatest department. And so, thanks, guys.
Thank you. We're really pleased to have Paul. Our next one is our next employee.
Originally from Reno, I have had family in Pleasant Grove my whole life. My whole family lives here now, so. Yeah.
Thank you.
So our next employee is a brand new guy. We actually picked him up right out of paramedic school. I told him he either passed the paramedic test or he was out. And so like a week out of school, he took the test. He came to me and I asked him how he did, and he said something to the effect, I got 150 questions, and that normally means you failed miserably. But he passed it. So I'm so happy that I can introduce him tonight. Because if not, then he'd be looking for work somewhere else. I'm just kidding. No, this is Josh Swenson. He is kind of a local boy in this end of the county, and I think that he brings a tremendous amount of a strong personality and good skills, despite the fact they're still just a little bit young. But we're confident we can turn him into whatever we need him to be because he seems malleable enough. Josh.
So I'm Josh. I'm married, no kids. I grew up in Lehigh. I went on and played a couple years college baseball down at UVU. It's fun. Went on and got my fire certs, and then went and got my paramedic. And like he said, the test is variable. If you usually get 80 questions, it means you pass with flying colors. You get to 150, it's like you're right on the border the whole way through. So I ended up passing, and I cried because I was so happy I had a job. And no, I'm just excited to be here. I mean, it's a dream come true to land a full-time job here. So I appreciate it. I'm excited to serve the community. So,
welcome.
Thank you guys.
You got the staff, so.
Yeah, I'm getting ready for mustache march.
Scott, do you have any others?
Okay.
Sure.
I think I only see one of ours here. A couple of them were supposed to be coming. This is Audrey Schaefer. She is part-time at the library. She's a shelver / page, whatever you want to call her. She is responsible for keeping our books in the right places, and that's a really important job when you're trying to find something in the library. And she volunteered at the library for, didn't you?
3 years.
For 3 years before getting on at the library. So she's really served the community. Want to tell about yourself?
So I've lived here in Pleasant Grove since I was 7. Married, no kids, and just happy to work at the library.
And Melinda just walked up. She was working at the library until just now. This is Melinda Overson, and she just started a month ago, about, and she is an assistant librarian, and so that means she answers the tough questions and helps with checkout and all, make sure our displays look good, all of that stuff. That's really important, keeping the library going. Do you want to tell about yourself?
Sure. My family moved to Pleasant Grove when I was 12, so I lived here for a few years till I got married and went to college and all that cool stuff. Since then, I've been back for 10 years, and I have 4 kids, and my daughter who lives at the library, so it's a great place for you to Let's see.
So one of my employees, when Melinda applied, she said, I can answer just about anybody's book questions. Like they want suggestions. They'll say, I've read this. Can you give me a recommendation? And she said, Melinda is the only person, the only patron that I can't come up with anything for because she's read it all. So I thought that's a good person to hire for the library. So glad to have both of them.
Welcome, thank you.
Anyone else?
I believe that's it.
Hey, you're certainly welcome to stay if you'd like, but we understand if you have pressing issues that you need to get to, feel free. All right. Item 8B, let's see. Dave, did you want to do your certificates? Guess I dismissed them too soon, huh?
All right, I've said this before, I write much better than I ad-lib, so hang on. In my early days, as I was looking for a career and in college, then I was kind of vacillating between a couple of directions, and I began to kind of explore the fire service. And so I began to look in different universities for classes that were related to the fire service, and I couldn't find any. Thank goodness those times have changed. As early as 1966, international fire service leaders recognized the need to establish a plan for training future fire service leaders. To that end, the International Association of Fire Chiefs through the years have developed a program to ensure the fire service develop the best leaders using the best strategies. That process led to the development of the Officer Development Handbook. This book is the quintessential hitchhiker's guide to fire service leadership competencies. Common business leadership models often require a person heap bucketfuls of education onto their resume, but then often doesn't include much experience. This program turns that pyramid upside down, actually right side up, and recognizes that experience that has long been proven to be the best teacher is on the forefront. To that end, you take experience, add mentoring others, and then top it off with great education and training, and you have the makings of a fire service leader worthy of the distinction. Using this book, including the additional requirements placed in place by the Utah Fire Chiefs Association, Lieutenant Chase Gussman and Captain Justin Whatcott compiled all the necessary documentation, filling a 3-inch 3-ring binder in triplicate and presented it for evaluation. The documentation included a full set of National Incident Management Training Certificates, fire training certificates from a broad spectrum of disciplines, firefighting, rescue, inspections, investigations, and management. Added to this certificate that is the crown jewel, a Bachelor's of Science degree in Emergency Services Management. Finally, each of them had to meet the experience requirements that included progressively responsible leadership duties. The term police officer and fire officer is not synonymous. In the fire service, a fire officer is a leadership position. It's a person of rank. I am pleased to recognize these two extraordinary members of our fire department. They are among only a handful of others in the state that have achieved this distinction because of its extraordinary difficulty. So I would like to present to you and recognize Lieutenant Chase Gussman and Captain Justin Whatcott as having been awarded the prestigious title of Supervising Fire Officer by the Utah Commission of Fire Service Officer Designations.
Good work.
A little too touchy.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 9, action items with public discussion. Our first item A is a public hearing to consider for adoption an ordinance 2015-20, request of Craig Smith to rezone approximately 12.32 acres from RR, rural residential, to R112 zone, single-family residential on property located at approximately 1640 North, 300 East in the RR zone.
Okay, Mayor and Council, this item recently came before the Planning Commission for this same request to rezone this property. It also, this property was represented at the Board of Adjustment recently for clarifying or allowing a variance on the type of codes that could be used for the street improvements in relation to those that front onto 1800 North. An existing home on the corner of 1800 North and 100 East does not have the standard road improvements. And when it's this property is needing to be included in the overall subdivision, would need to upgrade to that. So there were, sorry, yes. So a variance was granted for this from the Board of Adjustment, and then at the last Planning Commission meeting, it was reviewed and recommended for approval there. So I'll review what the proposal is. The property is located on 1800 North with the one piece right here that fronts on the corner of 100 North and 1800. And so this is the overall property that is being proposed for a zone change. Currently zoned RR, which means half acre minimum lot size. The surrounding properties are, and including the subject property, are within the general plan area of low density residential. Low density residential provides for zoning as small as R112 or 12,000 square foot lots. It also allows for 15,000 square foot zoning or larger. But it is in this area that we have planned for several or many years to be available to this type of development for down to 12,000 square foot lot size. So again, indicating that it is in that area. So currently the zoning around it is R110 to the south and to the east, and also across the street to the west. You've got some R120 across the street to the north. But all of this area and through here in the green area is RR. And that is kind of a holdover from previous zoning many years ago. All of this area, 1800 North or approximately, or shall we say even below that, I would say 1100 North to the north end of the community was RR zoned. And over the years, it has developed differently and has been planned through the general plan to develop differently. So as you can see on the aerial here that it is mostly undeveloped property. There are a couple of homes on it, and it is being the next item following this, should you approve this zone change, the next item would be the final plat for Mahogany View Estates, which will divide up that property, and we'll talk about that more as that comes up. So yeah, so that's the next item. So
R112 is larger than R110.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's a little bit larger than a quarter acre.
It is. Well, it's, yeah, barely larger than a quarter acre. Yeah. Kind of in between a quarter and a third.
So that's 12,000 square feet per lot.
Per lot, as a minimum lot size.
Right.
And I won't show you the proposal for the subdivision yet, but I'll just mention that as you divide up property, rarely do you come across a subdivision that has all minimum lot sizes. In this instance, there's a lot of larger lots on it, which actually come out to average half-acre lot sizes throughout the development.
So how many would you say are less than a half acre?
Maybe I better just show you what we've got on that, since those questions are coming up. Okay, so this is the proposal for the development here. So here's 100 East and 1800 North through here, connecting right here, so it creates some new roadways. There's about 4 or 5 properties over in this area that would need to take advantage of the R112 zoning. Everything else, some of these in through here, could fit into an R115 category. And then you've got a handful of 3/4 acre lots. This one is almost an acre. So the average overall is you got 0.53 of an acre, or over half an acre on the average through all of these. So again, it's only a handful that are taking advantage of the smaller zoning here. So that we can talk maybe more about that when we get to that item. So that's their proposal, but in order to do that, in order to have any lot size that is down to the R112 category, we need to do a rezone. So that is the proposal. The proposal that came forward to Planning Commission was reviewed. I know there was several residents that came out, some who spoke against this proposal, but in the end, the Planning Commission did recommend approval unanimously.
What were other concerns?
I know that there were some submittals letter-wise, but I think a lot of that had to do with open space, maintenance of open space, maintaining the character of their neighborhood as far as being large lots, feeling that these smaller lots didn't belong in their neighborhood.
Were they concerned that all of them were going to be the R112? I kind of thought I understood that they thought everything was going to be R112, and then when they found out it was a lot of lot size averaging and different size lots, then they felt better about
I think
it.
some were appeased at that, but I do believe that there were some that were unhappy with the approval or the recommended
And
approval.
are animal rights is that being carried over? There's animals or has been on the property?
Okay, only if the property, no, I'm sorry, that's not correct.
They had an animal there in the
If there is an animal there and they maintain a property that is at least a half an acre, then they can keep the animals on it. But by subdividing the property up, if in the location of a 12,000 square foot lot is where we've kept the barn and the animal, that's not going to work. The animal can only be on a half acre or larger lot size.
And if the animal has been there for, what's the minimum time period?
Within the last year, without interruption.
So did most of them walk away satisfied then? The ones that had the letters, had concerns?
I couldn't speak for if they were satisfied or not. You may hear from them tonight.
Yeah, this is a public hearing.
Okay, shall we open it up then to the public, or do you want to ask questions of Ken first? Okay, let's go ahead and open it up to the public. If you have a comment on this item, please come state your name and address, and then we'll hear what you have to say.
So this is just about the zone change.
This is just the zone change, yeah. I guess we won't find out. Okay, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back up here. Council, what discussion would you like to have?
That was my only concern, is that they walked away happy, and apparently it's not showing. Some of them must have walked away happy, so.
I just had a call from a resident who asked about the half acre and the animal, but those questions were answered, so.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that we adopt ordinance 2015-20, requested Craig Smith to rezone approximately 12.32 acres from RR rural residential to R112 zone. Single-family residential on property located approximately 1640 north, 300 east in the RR rural residential.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Cindy and a second by Diana. By voice, Ben?
Yes.
Sid?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
It's unanimous. Okay, motion carries. So the next item, so this is now going to 10A, and it's not a public hearing.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so Mahogany View subdivision is the name of this proposed development. And they're proposing, you've seen these maps already, so I'll just skip to the plat. A total of 18 lots, Again, there is a couple of homes on the property, one on the corner here and one further in. Total, as mentioned earlier, the average is a half-acre lot size, and only 4 lots fit within the R112 category. So, so access comes off of 1800 North here and connects the roadway north and south through the middle of the subdivision. It has received engineering review, and the recommendation is approval for the final plat.
So the only reason for going to an R112 was to accommodate those few lots that needed the minimum size.
Right. As you try to make connections with future roadways and existing roadways, sometimes the land creates a need for smaller lot sizes. I think otherwise they could have gotten away with an R115 in most cases, but it was just a handful of lots here that created the need for the R112.
Megan, can you explain that a little bit more, Ken, with the road? Can you explain what, or Ken, maybe you can explain with the road going through how it changes the lot size?
Well, depending on the alignment of the roads and the boundaries of the property, you've only got so much space on either side of the road there. So to divide it up into lots, sometimes it creates a little bit smaller lot size.
They started with 4 fixed points. So this road stubbed here, and then these 3 intersections across the street. So our ordinance, you have to start here at the stub. And then either you line up with the existing intersection, or you have to be at least 150 feet away. So when we put those in there, they were really stuck at these points. So some things like this distance here, they really didn't have any flexibility. Whereas if there was nothing in the north side, then a 15,000 square foot lot and spacing it out a little bit different might have been possible.
And will you explain the Board of Adjustment? I didn't quite understand that. That's on the road on First East, isn't it?
Right, so this corner property right here, when was it? About 7 years ago when 1800 North was put through in this location, and it doesn't align exactly with 1800 North on the west side. And so we had this existing home here. So without cutting into their yard too much at that time, it was permitted through a different approval process that the full street improvement, including curb gutter sidewalk, was not installed at that time. So we're looking at, since the home is existing, well, okay, it's a grandfathered situation, but because they are dividing this property to make another lot back behind it, that creates a need for this one being a part of the overall subdivision plat, which kicks it into current code requirements. So that's why they needed to get the variance on that lot.
Can you point out the existing homes then?
Dagan, maybe you can help me better with that.
As they correspond to the lot.
Actually, there's only one home on the property here. There are several out.
Those are just outlets. Okay, I was thinking that was a home. Okay.
So there's one home that exists.
Right there.
Okay. Okay, questions, discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that the city council approve the proposed 23 lot final subdivision called Mahogany Beach Plat A, located at approximately 1640 North, 300 East in the R112 single family residential zone, and adopting the exhibits, conditions, and findings of the staff report.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Eric and a second by Ben. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Good to see you.
All right, item 10B is to consider for approval a final plat. Sorry. Okay. A final plat, a 1-lot subdivision called Olion, is that correct?
Yes.
Being approximately 0.5 acres on property located at approximately 1246 North, 500 East in the R115 zone.
About 5 years ago, this particular property was brought forward as a one-lot subdivision for the Atwoods. And there are just some slight adjustments to the property that are needing to be made. And so it's coming forward again with a new owner. So that's a new name. So it's located, boy, I don't have my glasses on, so now I'm not being able to read them. Someday I'll have to go buy some glasses.
1300 north.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, so we've got the stub road coming down into this location where formerly this property was all part of a larger parcel here. So the access comes down through here. The changes that are being made here is there's a strip of land that was not part of the original parcel that is just right on the north side. Plus there's a very little triangular piece here that is being dedicated to the property to this side. So just some slight adjustments to the property. It otherwise is pretty much the same thing that we've had approved.
Were the changes caused by lot line adjustment? Were they purchased? What were the natures of the growth?
Do you know the history of that?
Actually, as this was approved before, Val Atwood was moving forward with the idea of building a home. He actually dropped that. So we got it approved. He decided that technically some of the concerns that were there with the sewer specifically were beyond what he wanted to deal with. So he just stopped. So really his approval expired because he never proceeded to final. It's essentially the same thing. That the strip was there before the corner across the street. Those would have been dealt with. We're really looking at the same proposal. We just have a different owner who's planning on taking it through to completion this time.
Was there a question about lot size after the road was put in?
There was, and that's, so previously they did a rezone. So this was our, if I remember correctly,
yes,
rezoned to R120 so that the lot was large enough. After the road dedication was made, it was not large enough to meet the RR requirements, but it meets the R120 requirements.
And does the strip adjustment affect it at all?
No, it still meets the requirements.
And she's gonna cover sewer at Bill.
Her proposal is to install a injection pump and pump sewer up to the main 1300.
So part of the road will be installed as part of this.
Correct. So from the east boundary currently where it ends to the south boundary of the property, the road will be extended.
What about the, I know there have been concerns about runoff from the upper road. What's going to be done with storm drain?
So currently, as the road comes down, there is a curb inlet right here. There's an irrigation line that works its way down to here. So there's a large box here. So and then it goes to the west. So as they make these improvements, they can install a curb inlet here, possibly relocate the one down a little bit further. So it's very doable.
But it'll be covered.
But it'll be taken care of. Yeah. So we're not done with the engineering side of it.
Okay. Did animal rights go away when this was approved before?
yes, with the zoning change that took it to R120.
Okay.
And they no longer have a half acre, so even if they wanted to persist, they don't have to.
Questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve final plat, one lot subdivision called Olin, being approximately 0.5 acres on property located at 1246 North 500 East in the R115.
That's correct. It was changed to the R115 zone. Yeah, I'm sorry, we were misspeaking there.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Cindy, second by Diana. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 10C is to consider for adoption an ordinance 2015-21, amending Title 7, Section 3, Cemetery Regulations, subsection 17A, headstones and vaults of Pleasant Grove City Municipal Code by increasing the height limitations on headstones and providing for an effective date.
Tina's actually going to address this one.
It says Scott, but it's really me. Mayor and council, we have received a request from an individual by the name of McKay Malum, and he was going to be here tonight. Is he? Oh, there he is. Okay. So just to set this up until a year ago, our height restriction on headstones out at the cemetery was 36 inches. And about a year ago, we did an overall change, an update to the cemetery ordinance, which incorporated a number of issues, including reducing the size of our headstones from 36 inches to 28 inches. Mr. Malum recently lost his wife unexpectedly and had planned on a certain type of headstone, thinking that the taller headstones were still permitted, going to the cemetery and seeing the taller headstones. He did not read the fine print when he bought the plot that said the restriction. So he has picked out a headstone, and I believe it's been ordered, but I don't believe it's been actually constructed yet. And in the meantime, he realized that there is a 28-inch restriction. So he submitted an application requesting the council consider amending the ordinance back and allowing headstones to be increased to the 36 inches. The application in your packet says 40, but if you decide to make that change, it will be 36, not 40. I spoke with the gentleman this afternoon, and he indicated to me that he was really only asking for 36, that that's the size that he has ordered, and that's the size that it used to be. So the 40 would be 4 inches taller than it used to be permitted, and I didn't think the council would entertain that. So his request would be 36, not 40. So he's here, ready to answer any questions, and then also Dion Giles would like to have an opportunity to address the council before you make a decision on the request. Okay.
Really like the council to consider that change. But if you have any,
could you speak into the microphone?
is that better?
Yeah.
And then state your name and address as well.
McKay Malum, 706 North Dalton Drive, Pleasant Grove. The current height restriction of 28 inches, after you consider the granite base that's required, puts the overall stone height less than 2 feet, which is fairly restrictive and not what we had planned on doing. And like I said, there was a little bit of an assumption I made that the heights were going to be okay at 3 feet roughly, based on the other stones that were already there. My fault for not reading the fine print, but I don't think I'd be the only one to request a slight height increase. I understand some of the reasons behind it for the sprinklers and the dead spots on the lawn, things like that, things of that nature. But I'm not sure that 3 feet would be too restrictive on that. I don't know what kind of damage it would do. There are some bigger ones that are about 5 feet or 6 feet tall that would potentially cause damage, but the smaller stones, I'm not sure what they would, any damage would be caused there. So, any questions?
For Mr. Mellon?
Your current headstone you have ordered is 36?
Yeah, I think it's 34, but
34?
yeah, I wasn't aware of the previous height requirement of 36, so I had 40 on there just because I had to pick a relative number. So.
What are other cities doing? Do you know their height restrictions in there?
Orem is flat, but every municipality from Lehigh down to Provo, there is no height restriction.
Well, first, I just want to say that I'm sorry for the loss of your wife.
Thank you.
You guys go to Valley View, and so I just want to say I'm sorry.
Thanks.
And just thank you for putting time to do that. I'm sure you're still going through a hard time. So.
Yeah.
And I echo that in saying thank you for bringing it to our attention. Sometimes things are, until it's a reality and we really see how things affect, we're not really quite sure of the real
Oh, sure.
picture.
Sure.
So we're very grateful that you brought that forward.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mayor and council, as he stated, we have some fairly large headstones at the cemetery. In the older section, currently they're not as big of an impact because we have the old quick coupler type systems that you punch in the ground and they can shoot out there, and their arc is pretty straight up. With the automated systems and the updated technology and the irrigation heads, where they pop up out of the ground, they no longer stand a couple feet out like the old quick coupler type do. The reason that we lowered the height restriction was we were getting a lot of complaints on dead spots that were due to these larger headstones. And we've tried to do a lot of hand watering, and it's pretty taxing on the crew to drag hose everywhere. That's the reasoning that we implemented this height restriction last year when we adopted this. And the staff, we would recommend we left it at that. If we go much higher than that, we actually really do impact the irrigation system.
So you're recommending leaving it at 24?
Yeah, I wouldn't go any higher than 30 at the very most. So they put a base in, the granite base has to be flush. So the actual overall height has to be flush with the turf. The overall actual height of the headstone can be currently 28 inches. So having purchased one lately for my father, you can get a pretty nice headstone, but there are people out there who would like the larger ones. And the 28 inches also handles the benches that a lot of people are installing out there also.
The language that I'm seeing on the actual document is in red and it has 40 inches underlined.
That's what I explained. He filled out this application and asked for 40, and so the ordinance was prepared for 40.
Okay.
But when I spoke to him today, his request really is 36.
So this will be changed.
So that will be changed. If you decide to approve it, you have the authority to amend during the discussion when you're passing an ordinance. So you would just make the motion to either leave it the same, approve it at 36, or modify it to some number in between there.
So you're comfortable at what height?
30 at the most.
And yours is?
34. And that's with the base and everything. So the base has to be flush mount with the turf, with the elevation of the soil. So, your base sits flush with.
So is yours designed that way?
There's the concrete base, but for any stone it has to be a granite base of 6 inches. So there's the concrete and the granite base. After the granite base of 6 inches is taken off, you only got the 22 inches left over from that first height.
And the granite base is because that's what they say, whoever makes the headstone say it's gotta sit on that size of the granite base.
I don't know what flush with the turf or anything, but I know there's the concrete, and there's the 6-inch granite base on top of that, and then the headstone.
Some are concrete and some are granite bases.
Right.
It depends on how they go in. The issue with the concrete, as long as the granite base meets the specifications, so they can be weeded around. There's like a 4 or 6 inch, I can't remember, edge around the base of the headstone. So as long as the granite base meets that requirement, that's acceptable.
Well, what does that mean, Dion? I'm not understanding what you mean by the granite.
So there's a
base.
couple different types of headstones. Sometimes they'll have a granite base or a concrete base, one of the two. That portion of the structure needs to be flush with the turf. Beyond that, like he's mentioning, some, like with my dad's, we did concrete base, and then there is a base that the headstone sits on.
And that's 6 inches, and that's dictated by the headstone makers?
Yes.
So they're kind of like, so they dictate at least the 6 inches.
I think it depends on which style you buy. There's quite a few styles out there to purchase. The bases vary.
So in the 6 inches after the 6 inches, then it only allows difference on the headstone. So
Is it a height Is it the 6 inches, is that a height?
Yes.
Okay, and then how far in does the,
I want to say it's 4 inch. I haven't reviewed that.
so this is to
But
provide for like a mower?
provide for mower and edgers, yes.
And is there a reason that it's 6 inches? Is it stability or?
That all depends on the headstone company.
Okay.
So there are granite bases where the whole thing is one piece basically, and the granite base meets that requirement for the distance around for the mowing and that type of thing.
So you're saying 30?
Saying 30.
You're saying 34? So how do we bridge the gap here, 4 inches? Can you lower the headstone?
The style that I got was a heart shape. Bringing it down makes the heart look weird.
When you say bringing it down, what do you mean?
Well,
Shrinking
so it's
the
gonna
heart
be a
makes it
squatty heart.
Yeah, it looks oblong.
So have you,
I haven't looked
No,
at
no, no,
it.
I'm sorry, I miss saying what I mean. Are you opposed to moving the structure down a few inches? Not changing the
Down.
size of the heart, but the entire structure lowering?
No, that's-
Would you be willing to do that so that the height could be the 30 inches?
But can I ask, I thought the headstone people said it has to be 6 inches.
The granite base has to be 6 inches.
So we can't,
To lower it, the whole thing,
right.
so that
But
it
not
is.
Put the whole thing down in the ground more.
So if they get 6 inch hole, they get 10 inch hole. So part of the granite base is buried in this.
You can't do that.
That wouldn't meet our requirement. It has to be a flush mount
Yeah.
base. So it would be a trip hazard if it was 4 inches below that.
so have you already paid for the headstone? Is it already been ordered?
Yeah, I paid for it, but I don't know how far they've gotten manufactured.
Yeah. How do we get some of the bigger ones out there if it was 40 inches and the 5 footers?
They come in during the night. No, this has been an issue for quite a while, and that's the reason that we changed the ordinance a year ago, was to be able to handle some of these larger stones.
How do other cities make it work?
Maybe it's their irrigation system, the way it's designed, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. We don't design our systems to, well, I guess for the future of headstones, as far as being 5 feet tall or whatever, 4 feet tall. We design them to be lower.
Okay.
So we're talking about the height of this table, right?
Roughly.
At the base of the base? Is there any way to work with the headstone manufacturer to get that granite base even half the size of the granite base?
I'm not sure on that.
If it's a design thing or if it's a structural thing.
Right, or if it has to be that big.
Generally, your monument companies will order these pre-cut and they do the engraving. That's generally how they
Right.
deal with
And the
these.
bases are also pre-ordered. But that is something that we could consider is, or if you'd be willing to.
Potentially, if another option would be to look at what kind of irrigation requirements are there. And I don't know how much it would cost, but I'd be willing to bear some of that cost or all that cost, depending on what it would be to move things or change things to make it work. Adding a fee for people that apply to request a higher headstone might be one way to help offset some of that cost or some of the difficulties with the irrigation systems.
Yeah, I mean, headstones are a real personal purchase. And we're telling people that they have to be, because of our irrigation won't go around it or over it or something like that. I'm really kind of struggling more with it.
Well, the other issue that we
So-
have on these larger stones is the sprinklers do hit them. And the hard water stains them, and then we get, we're questioned why their headstones
Right.
doesn't look too
But
attractive.
do they understand that when they put that size of a headstone in? Is it in the contract that they're?
It's in our
that-
policy, yes, that
it
they
could
get when they purchase a
stained
lot.
Because of the water purchase? I just struggle with limiting, especially at that time. It's just a struggle, and I'm struggling with the fact that every other city's okay. Other than those that have put in flat. I love our cemetery, for the fact that they're not all flush with the ground.
So do a lot of Orem residents.
I know. So we don't want to go there, and I don't want to go to the point of excluding people either. You know, going, the headstone might be more important to them than the fact of being buried here. So if we're limiting, you know, what they can put as their headstone, they may choose to go somewhere else.
In my case,
And in monument to that person, you know, we're limiting them as to what they can put there as a remembrance of that person.
Yeah, the other thing we need to remember is the other lots that it affects when it's being blocked. You know, there's other people that have other lots that,
Right, then they'll make
then
it
they're,
known.
well, their lots are the ones that are paying the price for no water.
Right.
So Deanna, is there a way to make it work with what he suggested of the irrigation he's willing to help reconstruct right there, or whatever he needs to do to get it to work right there?
The way that the systems are designed is for precipitation, sorry. And they're all scaled accurately, and designed that way so we can get the correct precipitation rate out on the turf. When we start adding heads, moving heads, that type of thing, it really alters that system. So we'll be overwatering one area, underwatering another type thing.
Even with one head, or one?
Sure, in that area, yes.
So the base with its 4-inch lip needs to be flush with the sod.
Correct.
And then the granite from there to the top needs to be, in this case, 30 inches or less.
Yes.
When a base is installed, is it poured or is it brought in, cut and dropped in?
Different monument companies do it both ways. So they can pour the base or they prefab.
You have a port with the hole in there to set the monument into it to preserve the flushness and the 4-inch and lower the monument to fit without changing the shape of the heart.
that would be an option, I assume, I don't know, I'm asking them about that either. Does the city usually pour the concrete base on?
No.
No.
No, we don't have anything to do with the headstones.
So structurally, if it was all structure was happening, support was happening underground, then you would not have to have base.
Well, the 6-inch base would be recessed into the concrete, in this case, 4 inches.
If they were to do that, I would recommend maybe digging that base a little bit more than the 4 inches, just so that
there's
it
more
could handle
concrete
that
under-
weight of the
And
headstone.
then preserving the lip so that it's flush with the sod.
Right.
Does this work for you?
That would work if they could do that, yeah.
Does it work for you?
Sure.
So explain what we,
We're gonna hope that there's an engineering solution that doesn't require change to our ordinance.
Or that we will change the ordinance
Yeah.
to 30 inches.
right,
And Mr. Mullum will work with his stone company, his headstone company. When they create the base, they'll create it thicker into the ground so that the sides of it are still flush with the sod. And then the monument itself will be placed into the cement so that instead of 6 inches sticking up, it'll stick up 2 inches. And then you'll have the rest of the structure, which brings it to a height of 30 inches. It's currently at 34.
Dion, how many, are we getting requests from residents that want to do a larger headstone? Is that outweighing?
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Are we getting requests from residents who want to hire a taller headstone, but because of the ordinance aren't able to do that?
This is the first.
So what's the majority of Orem or other cities coming over? PG?
I don't have that number, but it's quite a few Orem residents come this way.
And based on the discussions I've had with family and friends, and my daughter's had a hand in designing this heart stone, and it's going to be the place, like city council member, city mentioned, to remember their lawn for the next, 30, 40, 50 years. So the fact that the height was limited, if we'd have known that in the first place, then we would have gone to somewhere else to have her buried. And that's not ideal for her because she lived here for 20 some odd years. She lived here most of her life. So she would have preferred to have been buried here, but based on that memorial being particular height, it'd be a shame to limit other residents on where they can bury their loved ones outside the city that they know and love, just based on the height requirements.
You said it very well.
John did bring up one good comment, that as we have the freeze thaw period during the winter, that seam around that headstone and concrete will weaken the concrete. So that you might want to look into that as you talk with the monument company. And you can directly work with me if you would like. We can help anyway.
So are you comfortable with that?
That's something I could look at. If they're okay with that, I don't know if that's something they would do. If that's an option for them, I'd be happy to do that.
But then we'll come back and I guess just let us know what happens. We'll move in that direction. And then if you use stone as opposed to concrete, so that would change up that freeze thaw.
Yes. That's why some people go with the granite base, is because it doesn't have that effect, the freeze thaw of it.
There's another option. Okay. Without modifying the heart.
Right.
And making it look like just
Oval
oval or
or base
something.
a little bit.
Right. Still maintaining the flushness with the sod and the 4-inch lip for mowing. All right, other questions or discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
So I guess my question is, do we still want to change the ordinance if we feel that his issue's been resolved and there hasn't been any complaints?
Could we keep it the same? We could move to amend the ordinance to 30 inches instead of 36. We could move to continue. You could move to
Well, that's what I
strike the
what we're
motion.
discussing as a council.
So my feelings are, I would like to put it back to the 36. I think it is very restrictive. I think that if other cities can figure it out, I don't know why we can't have it as a 36. I would hate to see people live here all their lives and then move at their death, basically to go to another cemetery because of the restrictions on the distance. So,
Well, the thing is, as I can see the maintenance issue that Dion's talking about, Dion, how many complaints were we getting with the dead spots?
Well, they're pretty much yearly if we forget, if we don't have time, if we're doing burials, and we can't get to that one every week. Well, not one, but there's probably 6 to 8 out there currently with organic watering individual lots.
We could continue it until we find out how he's doing with the monument company. Because if sinking the stone is a structural sound and thaw frost solution, then maybe we don't have to. So
I think that's a good solution because if engineerically and whatever, that's not gonna work.
that's engineering.
Yeah, I can make up anything I want.
That's magical and engineering.
Engineerically, let's continue it and see how this is gonna work, because this is a real situation.
Yes.
This,
But, and
You know,
I'm curious about the engineering, if that'll work. So why don't, may I make a motion that we continue?
Yep.
Let's see, let me make sure, are we on C? I move that we continue, amending, is that how we do that?
Just motion to.
I make a motion that we continue
I second.
Okay.
to a specific date that he's
You
gonna
don't,
tell us.
you don't have to have a date certain if it's not a public hearing. The only reason why we say date certain is so that we don't have to go through the process of re-noticing on the public hearings. So if you just want to make a motion to continue the ordinance until
Further
notice,
information.
Yeah. that would be fine.
Okay, we have a motion by Diana, a second by Eric, all in favor?
Aye.
And
Motion
and
to
can
continue.
yeah, and can we be kept up on what's happening?
One other creative possibility might be to have a portion of the cemetery dedicated to taller headstones with a different watering system in that portion. I like the idea of different fees. I think there's a lot of creative possibilities we can still explore.
I agree. I like that idea.
That's something we're gonna look into as we design the next 10 acres. We are gonna look at even the possibility of flush mounts. You know, weeding around these headstones 2 to 3 times a year. 6,000 headstones is quite a bit of weed eating. So I see Orem's side of the story as far as flush mounts, but I can also see our side with the onions. So that's something we'll look at.
We wish you the best. Please keep us posted.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, item 10D, responses to public input from the budget discussion. So following our budget public hearing a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, there were a number of questions that were brought up during that public input period, and so we assigned Scott and staff to go back and research these and bring us back some information that addresses each of those questions. So I think you and
Me, Tina, maybe Dave, if we get real detailed in the fire department.
Thank you.
And I'm just gonna go over what we have, and if the council has further questions on some of these items, then we can go a little deeper. Because I'm not necessarily gonna go into super detail on everything other than I think enough that should address what the question was and what the answer is. So Fox Hollow was one of the big ones that came up, and I'll have Tina address the legal side of it because one of the questions that's asked is why don't we just get out of Fox Hollow? And Tina's done a ton of research. I think did a 6 or 7 page report on that that's been sent to the council. And if the public wants to see the details on that, that's something that we can make available to them. But I do want to talk a little bit about the financial side of Fox Hollow, and that is what we do on a yearly basis. So we do send them a payment every year for $240,000. That payment covers the bond, which is, it fluctuates each year, but it's roughly about $120,000 a year.
Why does that fluctuate?
Just bonds aren't always, they're not always the exact same amount. It's not like a mortgage, but it might fluctuate within $1,000 or something. So it's not extreme fluctuations, but there is, I can't say it's like this past year, $119,701 was the payment for the bond. Next year, I think it's $120,000 something, or maybe it comes down slightly, but. So out of that $119,701 goes to the bond payment. There is a land payment we're currently making for $13,900, which is land that is being purchased from the state of Utah that's part of the golf course. And so I don't know if initially if it was a lease or what it was, but it got to a point where they wanted, when I say they, the Fox Hollow board wanted to purchase that. And so we make a yearly payment for $13,900 for the purchase of that land. And Tina can go into the legalities of us turning around and selling land and what interest that we have, because it does address that. She will address that as to whether there's a possibility that we could get out and then sell land and somehow come out whole when it's all said and done.
That retires in 2 years, I think.
Yeah, so there's 2 more payments on the land. I think is it 2, Dean? 1 or 2? And so when that payment ends, then the city council at that point, we can reduce what we're paying by $13,900. I don't know if Fox Hollow will come back and ask for that to continue to stay as part of the payment, that they could use that for other operations, but that's going to be up to them in 2 years when that comes. Then the council will have a decision to make at that time. So out of that, at least in 2014, for operations, maintenance, and capital was $106,399 for Pleasant Grove. And in essence, how it's worked at least in the past couple of years is we make the payment to Fox Hollow. They maintain the day-to-day operations through the board. There's a 9-member board. Lehigh, American Fork, and Pleasant Grove all have 3 seats on that board. That group is the one who dictates how that money is spent. So their operations includes whatever revenues they bring in, green fees, passes, wedding receptions, whatever their revenue stream is. And then they have their expenses, and whatever is not met through the revenues from the course then is what the cities put in to make sure that those operations could be paid for and met. And so that's what our 106,399 has gone to. Now, if they, through the operation side of things, don't spend that full 106,399, they turn around and reinvest that as one-time capital money into the course. So that could be golf carts, that could be golf cart paths, that could be equipment, whatever one-time costs that they might incur. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the financial side. So each year we write the check for $240,000, and then they manage the money from there. Fox Hollow is the one who makes the bond payment. They're the ones who make the land payment, and then they're the ones that handle the operations. So again, that's governed by the board. We have 3 members on that board that are Pleasant Grove residents that are appointed by our city council to sit on that board. And I can't remember if they have a term or not, but there's opportunities to switch that out from time to time on who sits on that board. So pretty much the rest of the Fox Hollow stuff Tina's going to cover. We did receive a request from Fox Hollow on a special program they were doing. They were asking each city for an additional $10,000 to work on a special part of what they were doing with the golf course. And this was about 6 weeks ago. Lehigh and American Fork both put in the $10,000. Pleasant Grove City, we told them that we weren't interested, or that we weren't going to put in on that. So that was something we decided at that time that we would not participate in.
So knowing that contract, it lists that if they need extra operating expenses, that doesn't fall into that, right? That's special thing that they asked for, the 2,000.
No,
That didn't break our contract.
no, that was it was just something above and beyond, I think, what they were trying to do. And I don't remember the exact details of what they were asking for, other than it was a one-time $10,000 expense. It was something I think that the board wanted each city to have the proposal. Like I said, the other 2 cities put in, we chose not to. One other financial thing that was asked was, what are the raises that those employees are getting out there? In the last, there's 2 full-time employees. There's Rick Roberts, who's the golf pro there, and John Henchen, who's the superintendent or the groundskeeper. Rick hasn't received a raise in 4 years, and John hasn't received a raise in 3 years. And so that was one of the questions was asked is, are they getting something different than what the Pleasant Grove City employees are getting? And if I remember, at least for our city, the last couple of years have been a 2% increase. And I think 3 years ago we had a 3% increase. So our employees have seen some slight increases, whereas at least their full-time employees over there have not seen an increase in the last 3 years. Okay, so one of the questions that was asked had to do with sales tax generated in, yeah.
Before we go on, why don't you just finish the.
Oh, should I have
Fox
Tina
Hollow?
cover it?
Yeah, let's finish the trend.
I'll turn it to Tina.
I have some questions about the part you covered too, Scott. So
Okay.
we could
As soon as Tina's done, we
stay
can
on
answer
Fox
all.
Hollow, yeah.
So, Mayor and Council, this is mostly for the public. As Scott mentioned, you guys have most of this information in my memo that I sent you. But basically, just to go back over the issue, is in 1969, the 3 cities decided that they wanted to build the golf course. The property that was used at that point was owned by American Fork City, and some was owned by the state of Utah. All 3 cities at that point in the 1969 agreement agreed to be responsible for 1/3 of the operating and maintenance costs and the cost of acquiring the land from the state. And in that first agreement, there was a provision that if any of the cities wanted to get out of the agreement, they could. However, it said the fact that a portion of the real property is the source of the American Fork City water supply, each of the three parties hereto agree that none of the real estate used in construction of the golf course shall be considered an asset subject to liquidation, but title to the same shall remain with American Fork City. Also, just as a side note, in the construction of the golf course, some property was acquired from the federal government, and the federal government actually contributed some money towards creating the golf course in the interest of preserving the watershed. And in that agreement between the three cities and the government, it also stated that future maintenance and operations shall be shared equally between the three cities. In October of 2001, the three cities decided to purchase the property from the federal government, or from the state, sorry, for $450,000. The prepayment contract was for 15 years, and it held a 6% interest. We pay, as Scott mentioned, about $14,000 on that. The contract payments end in November of 2016, so we'll have 2015 and then one more payment after that. However, to note in that contract, there's a reversionary clause in the contract that says if the property is ever used for anything other than a golf course, the property reverts back to the state of Utah. So I know there was some discussion on selling the golf course land and that it could be used for development, and we could make a significant amount of money off of selling that property to developers. But at least 84 acres, the part that we purchased from the state, can never be used for anything but a golf course. Otherwise, the property goes back to the state. In March of 2006, a new operating agreement was executed between the three cities. And my recollection, and maybe Mayor Daniels can chime in on this, my recollection is that we did that in preparation. We had started discussions about the improvements that were necessary out there. We had had discussions on the way the golf course had been operating and who had been overseeing the budget. And so we were trying to address some issues that we had found, and then also prepare for issuing bonds. So in that 2006 agreement, all proposals for major capital improvement costs would be presented to the three cities, and the costs would be shared equally between the three cities. The land purchased from the state of Utah had a condition of purchase on it, and we again noted that it would have to revert back to the state if it was used for anything else. It did provide that at the conclusion of each year's operation, an audit of the books would be made, and any loss from the operations of the course would be shared on an equal basis by all three cities, and any net profits would be used to meet capital needs and upgrade the facilities. The golf course committee was responsible for setting the annual budget, and the chairman and city finance officer of the city in charge for that year were responsible for reviewing and approving the budget. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but in our interlocal agreements, we sort of rotate which city takes the lead in on the committee, and then also we rotate legal counsel. So every 2 years, I'm the legal counsel for the golf course as well.
So who's in charge this year, do we know?
It's not me, that's all I know. So in 2007 is when the bonds were finally issued, and as we went through that process, the bond council was not necessarily happy with our updated 2006 agreement. They had some issues with that with regard to the security of the bonds. And so they required several things. They required, first of all, that we create a new entity called the Tri-City Interlocal Agency. They would become the actual issuer of the bonds. They also required us to enter into a new interlocal agreement, which modified some of the terms of the 2006 agreement. Also, they required the city to approve what they called an assessment agreement, which basically made us, we pledged that we would pay for the debt service throughout the term of the bonds. And fourth, the bonds were finally issued, and in that bond issuance, there were certain commitments from each city regarding responsibility for the debt and operating costs. So the bottom line is, and I could read you all the provisions of those, but that's legal mumbo jumbo that probably nobody cares about. But the bottom line is that we are contracted to make those payments, not only for the bond debt payments, but also for the operating and maintenance costs. And for the termination provision that used to be in the agreements is no longer there. And so we don't have the option of terminating our agreement until the latter occurring, either the bonds are paid off or 30 years. So contractually, we are obligated to those costs. We are not able to get out of the contract without breaching our contractual responsibilities, which as your city attorney, obviously I would not advise us to do. And then also to note that the bonds will be paid off in 2027. So that's the earliest that we could consider trying to pull out of that agreement unilaterally. And then also just to clarify too, I think there was a question on what revenue funds we had pledged to pay the bonds, and we pledged our municipal sales and energy tax. The 100% of that revenue stream is pledged towards paying that bond and any shortfall in the operating and maintenance costs of the golf course. Now we don't actually, that's my understanding, we don't actually use that stream of revenue to make that $240,000 payment, but we're legally obligated to use those funds if necessary in order to make that payment.
So who on the bond, did TICA write the bond language, or is that just something that's all cities involved got together and did?
The bond council wrote that language and the cities approved it.
Who's on the bond council?
Bond council is Ballard Spahr. And so I don't remember the exact attorney. It used to be Blaine Carlton. I think it was Blaine Carlton back then, and then one of his associates that worked with him.
Did
Do
you
you have any
cover the
questions?
offer to buy out?
Oh, I forgot. I was going to leave that to the end. So interestingly enough, and particularly for the public who are interested in the fact that, we might be able to sell our third, in 1991, we did receive a letter from American Fork City offering to buy our third share of the golf course for $226,000. As I went through the minutes, Mr. Bill West was on the council at that time and did have a participation in that decision. The minutes do not say how the roll call vote went, but basically Mayor Holdaway at the time recommended that the city of Pleasant Grove reject that offer under the feeling that our share was worth more than the 226. And the minutes reflect that there were a lot of citizens who came and spoke against Pleasant Grove getting out of the golf course at that point. The record is a little bit sketchy. The minutes indicate that Mayor Holdaway was tasked with writing a rejection letter to American Fork City, but I do not have a copy of any documentation to that effect. So
I think at one point though that the golf course was actually profitable at that point in time.
yes, yeah.
I think a lot of the competing courses were built at that.
Right. So there was reason to think that the golf course had more value as an asset than what was being
Right.
proposed.
Right. I'm not saying they made the wrong decision. I'm just
Right.
saying there was an opportunity there.
Hindsight's always 20/20, especially when it's 30 years ago. So
Maybe we never sent the letter, we can see if the offer's still
Yeah.
valid.
Ask him if they'll still take
And the
it.
lapse after.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, did you have other questions?
Yeah, let's go back to the finances.
Yeah, so, well, not directly related to finances, but related to board membership and composition. I don't recall having had a vote ever on who was on the board. I was hoping that you were very helpful to get us the names of the three board members. I'm wondering if we could figure out what their terms are, how long ago they were appointed, if we have any anticipation of changing that, or maybe we need to have a discussion and decide if it's time to change who's on that board. I think a board that's appointed by the elected officials needs to be held accountable to elected officials, who need to be held accountable to the public. And so we need to figure out if those chains of accountability are not as strong as it should be.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember in the last 5 years if we've changed somebody out. I want to say we did one, but I don't remember. I can find out if there's terms, and if not, then it's really, the council has discretion to change that at any time, just through the regular process.
Making changes during my last term, twice. And we also had the ability to have the chair position during that time period. I think Cindy also remembers that.
And we changed it since then too. I think there was one person that was the female, and I can't remember who. Cory, but I think there
Cory.
was.
Cory.
Yeah.
So
And so-
if it hasn't been done in 2014, and we haven't done it in 2015, I'm fairly certain 2016 will be our turn. So we can certainly address both the chairman and also the appointments. One of the persons that sits on the board right now is.
I'm just a representative of the council. I don't sit on the board.
Yeah, so the council member is the liaison. They are not a voting member of the board.
Do you remember the names of the?
But they have not been changed. I've been there for 2 years and they have not been changed since I was there.
So I guess we have a copy of the bylaws.
Yeah, so that's what we need to take a look at. I don't know what the bylaws are, but we can report back to you. Here's who's on, here's how long they've been on, here's whether the terms expired and we never reappointed, or if there is no terms, or somebody's term has expired and we reappointed somebody else, we can get that information to you. Yep.
I think I humbly submit that we take a close, fresh look at that very soon.
I humbly accept. I've got it right.
Okay, any other questions about Tri-State?
Thank you for the kind of research you put into
Tina is really the champion. She's the one that took a lot of time and effort to do that. So.
And on the topic of that research, is that available for public dissemination as people research? I mean, or is that attorney-client that you would?
It's attorney-client at this point. I would be happy to prepare a document that is available to the public, but at this point, I send it out as attorney-client privileged information.
Okay.
I do have a question.
That might be something that I could disseminate.
In reviewing minutes prior to 2007, what do we do? Is it on the website? It's just from 2007 as
Okay,
archive?
so prior to 2007, they're hard copies, and Kathy has those.
Okay.
And so you just need to come in and request those and go through them.
And by the way, Mayor, it's lots of fun reading old stuff. I like your stuff.
So it's not too hard to ask them to
Trying
come and
to
talk
be
to us, right?
harmonizing with.
To have,
The three board members want to talk to us, kind of give us an update.
that's not a bad idea. Just maybe have them come in annually and, so,
Why not be part of the retreat?
well, what happens is Fox Hollow every March does one of their board meetings where they invite all the city council members from all three cities. And they give a status report to the council members of that. That's kind of the yearly update that the council gets. And they'll talk some numbers there and talk about what improvements they're doing. They talk about the play. So we could have them come in here and address you so that the public can have a little better idea.
And Rick Roberts and Stuart Reed, who does their financials, have always asked to be invited so that they could present.
Yeah, so maybe our board members and some of the staff over there.
Right.
Okay, any other questions on Fox Hollow? Let's talk a little sales tax. So one of the questions that was asked is, are we as a city seeing an increase in our homegrown local retail, meaning our point of sale? So the sales tax distribution that we receive is anything that's generated in our city, we get a 50% of that. And so the point of sale is quite important for cities. Just that's why cities are fighting over retail all the time, because there's some revenue that's associated with that. So far for our fiscal year that it ends here in about a month, The Pleasant Grove City sales tax portion is up 17.11%, and the state portion is up 5.38%. So right now we're seeing an increase in success. I'm assuming our new Walmart neighborhood market has something to do with that, and some of the culinary crafts and some of the other businesses that have opened here in the last year that have brought a retail portion to us. We see that continuing to go up. doTERRA has just gone online as of about 10 days ago. So they're starting to sell now on site, which we will now start capturing that sales tax. So the anticipation is we'll continue to see good growth here in Pleasant Grove City. We were asked about the pay for TSSD, and that information I still do not have yet that I owe to you and to the public. What the question that was asked is, what are they getting for raises? Is it comparable to what our city employees get? And so I've got a request into them and just haven't heard back from them. But as soon as I get that, I'll relay that.
Maybe you can share how many cities are part of that, the board.
Yeah, so generally speaking, TSSD is the Timpanogos Special Service District. They take care of our sewer treatment. There's 10 cities, or at least 10 entities that belong to TSSD. There's also 3 at-large members. So there's 13 voting members that are on that board. We're 1 vote of those 13. And that's, as a district, it probably helps us save costs in the long run on sewer treatment. We've had other issues with them in regards to some composting and things like that. And just like any special service district, there's some pluses and minuses. So some of the pluses is saved costs, saving money. Some of the minuses is we don't fully have full control as to how we want to see that operated.
So is the only way to get that information is by calling them? It's not like on a website or anything?
Their website's there's nothing on there. So it's a matter of calling them and saying, can you give this information to us?
But it's not like on a state of Utah website or anything?
No. Well, I mean, ours isn't. If you want to find out what our employees got for an increased salary wise, you wouldn't. There's not a document that just says, okay, it's 2%. I mean, we can see their budget and we can pull that off, but you know, that's kind of hard to ascertain how many employees they have and things like that. Okay, so roads was another issue that came up when we talked a couple weeks ago, and so we just wanted to kind of clear up just some numbers as far as some of the questions that was being asked. So one of the questions that was asked is, what is our number in order for us to get on top of our road problem? Is it 3 million? Is it 3.5? Is it 3.8? Is it 4 million? You know, what's our number? Because we tend to talk all these different numbers. And JUB, did that study. So I'm just going to read what was on the study. It did say if we paid, as a city, if we were to invest $4 million a year in our roads, then at the end of 20 years, only 4% of our roads would be in a very poor or failed condition. And by 23 years, we would have 0 roads in a failed or poor condition. So $4 million a year at the end of 23 years, we would not have any failed or very poor roads in our community. And that's the direction that the council has asked, that's where we want to go. We want to have either excellent, very good, or good roads in our community. We don't want to have very poor or failed roads. If we were to put in $3 million per year, we would never get over the hump. So we would never get to a point where we have 0 very poor or failed roads. If we were able to put $5 million a year into our roads, then at the end of 15 years, all the very poor and the failed roads would be eliminated. So what the number is to exactly break even, probably just somewhere shy of 4 million. The number I think we've generally used is $4 million a year is what we need in order to solve this problem. And the time would be 23 years to solve the problem. So that was a question that was asked. I asked how much was spent on roads in the last 5 years, and Dean actually gave me the last 10. And it actually fluctuates. I mean, I'll just read the numbers. 119,000 one year, 2005. The next year, 373,000. The next year, 238,000. The next year, 473,000. The next year, 2,021,000. The next year, $1,458,000. Those were the 2 years that we bonded. So those are the bonds that we're still paying, but we spent a lot on roads because we got a large bond to do that. In 2011, it was $100,455. 2012 was $9,790. 2013 was $257,000. 2014 was $551,000. So far, year to date in 2015 budget is $290,000, and we've budgeted $740,000 for road projects next year. So our road expenses are not linear. They're not the same every year. And part of this depends on what the budget says that we can do. And this is where we turn to John and say, okay, how can we get the best value for the money? And sometimes it's been, well, let's not do a road project this year. Let's combine the money and wait 2 years and do a larger project and be able to get a better economy of scale on the price. And so some of this, in 2012, we only spent $9,000. Well, I mean, that's because we were saving up to do a larger project. Our revenue is more or less linear. We get our Class C road monies, which is about $950,000 a year. Now that fluctuates a little bit depending on how much gas tax is generated. But 950 is pretty close to what we're getting year in and year out. Now in 2013, the city council said we need to put more money into our roads, and so they allocated $200,000 out of our general fund to go towards roads. So right now, in revenue that we receive each year is $1.1 million, $1,150,000. So that's been pretty constant, at least since we've added the 200,000. That's just a constant number, but we don't spend that every single year, and mainly because we have the bond payment, which is roughly $750,000. That one we pay that off every year. And then the remaining amount of money, so right now at this point is probably $400,000, is something that, like this year we're spending $740,000. So we've been saving up a little money to do a larger project this year. And that's just, again, as we look at the roads and what makes sense for us to do at any given time, that's the decision that's been made. And that's been staff driven. We're the ones who put together, we have the plan. John's the one who recommends what roads we do. We present that in front of the council. The council just, in essence, approves the budget number and according to the recommendation from our Public Works Department on what roads need to be done. So that's been our general practice for, the last so many years. So we have so we have our expenses are not linear. They kind of bounce up and down depending on what we're going to do in a given year. The revenues are fairly linear. And if you just kind of look at what we generate and what we spend, we generally spend what we generate. Now, we might have a little bit of a fund balance. I don't know if we have a little bit in roads.
Class C monies?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's I think $1.3 million.
Okay. And so that's all going to be rolled into future road projects to make sure that money's spent. We feel that there's a need to have some of that in there. We probably don't need $1.3 million, but we're going to start spending that to make sure that our roads get taken care of. Yeah.
So this project that's coming up, does that correlate with the 10-year road plan that I get questions on? I know it's a game plan.
You're looking at me, you're talking to Scott, or you're talking to me?
John can give you an answer, and we'll probably give you two different answers, but I'll start. So we created a 10-year plan 2 years ago. And what was asked of the community is, when's my road going to be done? When's that going to happen? So John and Dean sat down, and Dean created the budget saying, here's how much money you're going to have to deal with. And then he turns to John and says, if you have this much money, what makes sense for us to do maintenance-wise? And so if you look at the 10-year plan, most of it, at least for the next few years until the bond expires, is really surface treatment type stuff. It's not mills and overlays. It's not reconstructions. Now, we put a little note on the bottom of that that says this is potentially subject to change based on what our needs are. And so Locust Avenue is a good example of a road that we went in and did the water, and now we want to go in and do the road on that. So that's a road that I don't know exactly where it was on the plan, but that's a road that we're probably moving up and having done sooner rather than later. So the 10-year plan is really us sitting down 2 years ago and estimating what we can do. But our reality is every year we sit down and say, what are the needs? And some of it stays to that plan and some of it does not stay to that plan. Well, it might be a little crisis driven. Most of it is whether it's, okay, if we're going to do this road, let's get the infrastructure done first, the water, sewer, usually the water lines, the sewer lines are actually in pretty decent shape. So and I've talked with our incoming public works director. I think what he suggested was that we would have a 3-year comprehensive capital plan that we can get in front of the council that is going to say, here's what we're going to do water-wise, sewer-wise, storm drain-wise, and road-wise, to marry those all together to make sure we're not duplicating efforts, or we're not, putting in a road and then digging up a water line, right after that. And so I think with a more comprehensive 3-year plan, then the city council will have that information all in front of you. And again, we don't have that ready today. I'm hoping that's something that we can have ready pretty much by fall, because our road project is going to happen in the spring of this next year. And so the council will have the overall view as to this is what's going to happen.
Scott, on that point, didn't we also discuss when a water line or sewer line or a storm drain line needs some kind of work to be done, that part of the funds could be used to also fix the road?
Yes, and that was a suggestion, and that is doable. And so we have to make sure that we figure out not the full cost. If we put in a water line on a road and then we come back and redo the whole road, we can't put the whole road on the water fund, but there is definitely a portion of the water fund that can pay for what they normally would have done, which saves some of the Class C monies and the general fund monies on the road. It might have been Frank that gave that suggestion. That was a great suggestion for us to kind of make sure, because the water fund's the one that's creating the issue in the road, and so it should have to pay that.
Along with
that cost.
Coordination, there's a possibility, and I think some of the larger entities do this, the outside entities like Rocky Mountain and Questar, some of the utility companies, they also coordinate with UDOT or the county when a project is going to go in to kind of get their work going at the same time.
Yes, and so that will be part of this 3-year plan. Now, whether those guys hold to it or not might be a different story, but at least we will have the conversation with them saying, in the next 3 years, are you coming in through any of these roads? Because, I mean, on 1800 North, we did a couple of years ago. They came in like 6 months later. Now, they did come back and redo the whole road, and so we were whole when it was all said and done. But it was a little frustrating to see new asphalt being trenched and torn up. But so, yes, that will be part of that 3-year plan. One of the questions that was asked is, can we stretch out whatever's left on that bond? Can we stretch, in essence, refinance it and extend the length of the bond to free up some capital money right now, as opposed to waiting till when it's paid off in 2018? The bonds right now are not callable, so that's not an option. And quite frankly, I don't think that's an option we'd recommend. Let's just get the bond paid off and move forward from there. If we were to extend it, that would just be more interest costs that at this point probably wouldn't be necessary. So we can't prepay it, can't pay it down, anything like that, because it was only a 10-year bond. I think that generally those bonds like that aren't going to be callable. So on the roads, one of the questions that was asked is, in the future, what's the revenue stream? So we have our $950,000 from Class C. This is current. Our general fund contribution of $200,000. And then we have the increase in the gas tax, which becomes effective January 1, 2016. That's an estimated $177,000. So that's an additional revenue we're going to start getting. Now, that's just going to come in the form of Class C road monies, but that will be additional monies that we're currently not receiving. And then we have the potential sales tax ballot initiative that if it's, whether it's going to be on this year's ballot or next year's or at any time, and whether the residents of Utah County votes that in is just kind of unknown. If it does get put in, the projected revenue to the city is $374,122. So if everything fell into place as far as that's concerned, our yearly revenue for roads would be 1.7 million. So still $2.3 million shy of what we need to reach the 4 million. But 1.7 is a lot better than 950,000, which up until 2 years ago, that's what we operated on for our road money. So that pretty close to almost doubling what we had in the previous years. The city council has asked the staff to look at what we call the Provo model on potential road funding. And we have Lewis Young, Robertson and Birmingham doing a study right now that models what Provo did to see if we were to implement something like that, what the cost would be to our businesses, to our residents, and give something for the council to consider if they wanted to implement or not. I think they told us in July we should have that report. So within a month we can present that and start talking, heading down that road. There are other mechanisms for the city council to consider for additional road funding, and we haven't really gone hardcore into those discussions, and we can, I'm sure we'll be addressing those. Once we get the study back from Lewis Young, that's one avenue of doing something. There are other avenues, and we can talk about all those with the city council. Any questions then on roads? Okay, dispatch. One of the questions was asked is if that's something that we could turn around and contract out with the county. Utah County has a dispatch. It's a special service district where a lot of the cities in Utah County have come together and said we're going to pool all of our resources and set up a dispatching entity that's going to dispatch for most cities. There are 4 cities in Utah County that do not participate: Pleasant Grove, Springville, Provo, and Orem. So we run our own dispatch center. They've talked with us. They usually initiate the conversations because the more cities they have, the more money there is. And so they've approached us. They usually approach us about once a year, and they ask us if we'd like to join. Now, they're looking at building a second facility. So they're trying to get whatever cities they can to help pay for that second facility. And they give us numbers, and they say, here's how much Pleasant Grove City would pay if we were to participate in the Utah County dispatch. And we take that and compare it to what we currently pay to provide our own service. In the last 3 years that they've given us the number, it's pretty much a wash. I mean, I think it's within just a few $1,000s. So as a city, we've always have said we like being able to control our service. And again, with the special service district, there's pluses and minuses. And one of the minuses is that you now lose your local control. So you're one vote now of whatever how many people are on the board. And so if you want to instigate change or institute change, it's a lot different. Right now, if we want to have change in our dispatch, it's an easy decision that we can make as a city, and we can change.
It's the TSSD model to
exactly right.
Dispatch or public safety, whatever you want to put on.
Yeah, and most cities went to that when it was created because a lot of them were already contracting with the county for the service. I think some of them got to a point where their dispatch wasn't making sense. And was there anybody, Mike, off the top of your head, that had their own PSAP that decided to abandon it?
Actually, the ability to have a PSAP is regulated by the state. So there actually are a lot of cities that want their own PSAP. They can't get it because the state won't allow it.
PSAP meaning?
So a PSAP is a dispatch center. So we have a PSAP. We call it dispatch, but the official term is a PSAP.
So that did come into play with a lot of cities, and that's why some have come to us and said, you are interested in working with us.
Yeah, we've been approached by neighboring cities every once in a while, seeing if we would offer the service. They're trying to get a better price from the county. And so sometimes we're used as leverage. We've told them we'd love to have you contract with us, and then they would pay us money for us to provide the service. We just never got to a point where a city has actually pulled the trigger and joined us. But
So how would those calls be routed? If we went to county, how would those calls be routed if I called and had a problem?
It's all through CenturyLink,
Yeah.
and it's really the technology now is pretty amazing. You know, it's just, for lack of a better word, it's almost just flipping a switch because of the way we're connected. Because right now, even though we're our own dispatch center, we are connected with those other dispatch centers, and like Orem is our official backup center. So if we go down, our calls automatically go to Orem. We're working on a system right now that makes that even more seamless with all of the public safety answering points.
That's what I'm sorry.
yeah, so the technology, if we were to go to county, doesn't change much. I mean, they're dispatching out of Spanish Fork. The distance doesn't necessarily really matter, but it's more just a control issue, I think, is if policy-wise they're doing things and they're setting how they're going to do their protocols that is something we're not comfortable with, then again, we have to deal with the board to institute that change. So our recommendation as staff the last 3 years and continues to be the same is we prefer to keep our own dispatch service and do that. Now, there could come a time where they approach us and we could save $100,000 or $200,000. Then I think we have a decision to make. But that time is not right now. So, but that's, to us, I think that's always on the table. Every time they call, we do listen. I mean, I think we need to listen to what they have to offer. It's a little unknown with their new building and how much that's going to cost and how much additional cities are going to have to pay, but that's where we're at on dispatch. Any questions on that? Fire department. One of the questions that was, well, there was a couple questions that was asked on the fire department. One of them is, can we contract our ambulance service? There's a company out there called Gold Cross. Is there a couple others besides Gold Cross that do this stuff, or is it usually Gold Cross?
There's 2 or 3.
A couple other entities that provide ambulance service. I think it was suggested that St. George does this and Provo does this. I think we're the 2 cities that were brought up. And so Dave has done a 7-page memo that has all the details for you guys to look at. But I created kind of my executive summary if this is something that we would want to consider or do. So generally speaking, most cities or fire districts, they keep their EMS service. Part of it is it's a revenue generator. There is a revenue associated with that. So that we generate probably about $300,000 a year in revenue from our EMS service. Gold Cross, their services is maybe a little different. Some of their people may or may not be paramedics. Close to all of our guys are paramedics.
It's a full paramedic service.
Yes. So we're an all-inclusive fire department. We have a car wreck and somebody gets trapped. Our fire department goes in, we extricate, we put them in an ambulance, and we get them to the hospital. If we were to have Gold Cross, the car wreck happens, our fire department goes in and extricates, and then we stick them in their ambulance, and then they take them in their ambulance. So there could be levels of service issue. It's kind of hard. We've never really sat down with Gold Cross and said, will you provide this service for us? So some of this is just either Dave talking to other cities or trying to ascertain how this would affect us if this is an avenue that we'd want to pursue. So we broke it down financially. And financially, we would probably lose about $24,000. Now, that's a quick and dirty estimate. If we were to contract out with Gold Cross, we think it would cost us just slightly more money to do that. So financially, we wouldn't recommend that. And then we can't really tell you today what the level of service change would be. Our assumption is it wouldn't be as good because now we're not controlling that aspect of that service. Right now we have paramedics that are doing this. They would maybe have some paramedics, maybe some EMS. They only travel 2 guys in an ambulance. When we go to a car wreck and a fire call, we have our truck go out and the ambulance. And so we have 6 guys there, and we can handle things a lot easier that way because we have more people there. If we actually have a fire, it's a little better service for us because now we have individuals that can get into the fire quicker because there's regulations on how many people need to be on site before somebody actually goes into the building. So those, Dave can go into more detail on that. I mean, like I said, it's in that report for the council to look at. I think from the staff's perspective, we wouldn't recommend heading down the road of actually taking our EMS service and using Gold Cross. So financially, we think it loses us a little money, and then we have the level of service issue.
Are we able to send these responses out to the residents who had brought up the questions, since they're not here tonight, so they can see that we got responses on those?
Well, we can make it available. I don't remember who brought up what. I guess we could go back and look through the minutes, but
we know.
So if you can forward this on to them. I mean, we can forward on to them as staff, but
Okay.
Well, it's well written.
Well, another question that was asked is, we only have 2 structure fires a year, and we're paying a lot of money for a fire department to fight 2 fires a year. And so I asked Dave to say, okay, let's define what structure fire means and what, because it's, there's a house fire, there's a car fire, there's different types of fires that we handle. And our fire department provides a lot of different services outside of fire and actually outside of EMS. So we provide a rescue service. We have a hazmat. We have some things that we maybe in a year don't deal with, but we're prepared for that emergency. I mean, it is an emergency service. And so we want to be able to deliver the service when it comes, but sometimes we might not actually have to deliver that service. So Dave broke down the calls, and on fire calls, now these fires could be, they could be a fire alarm, it could be a false alarm, it could be somebody's pan starting on fire in their house. And it's a pretty standard deal. When we get a call, we go in and we address the call. And if it's a house burning down, then that's what we address. If it's a pan on fire, then that's what we address. So I think it would be nice for us to sit back and say, well, we can let the pan fire go because that's not a big deal, but I don't, somebody calls us, and so they think that there's an issue there. And our job is to respond to that. And police is the same. We get a phone call and we respond. We don't exactly know. Sometimes we know the depth of it, sometimes we don't. And so it's a service that the city provides to say we are going to be prepared to handle the calls that we're asked to do. So, and that, I think cities, sometimes you battle this. You're like, well, how much do we need to invest in public safety? Because some of the things don't happen very often. But when they do happen, you're awfully glad that they have the expertise, the equipment, the things that they need, But your house is burning down, you're glad that they have an ability to respond to that. If it's not your house burning down, you might be sitting back saying, now why do we have this service available?
Yeah, but a tan fire or chimney fire could easily turn into a larger structure fire.
They usually get worse before they get better.
So just on the number of calls, in the last 11 months, this is June 2014 to April 2015, fire, including stacked calls. Now, stacked calls is if we get a fire call and then we get another fire call on top of it. So sometimes we get 2 calls at once. I think in the report, Chief Thomas broke it out as to the stacked calls and the fire calls. I just put them both together. So 334 fire calls, EMS 1,003 for 1,337 calls. So that's when they're called into service. We do provide education for kids. We're in the schools. We have Cub Scout groups, youth groups, whatever. They come and tour the fire station. When they do that, it is an opportunity to educate kids on fire safety and things like that. Same with our police department. So those are things that, sure, there's a cost to the city, and is there a cost benefit to that? kind of hard to put a number to that. But hopefully if we've prevented one kid from lighting matches and starting his house on fire, maybe we've done something good there. So I can't sit up here and give you a number to say this is the value that this creates. But that's just, I want to paint the whole picture as to all the different services that the fire department provides and what the city has said we're willing to invest a lot of money into that department. Any questions on fire department?
Thanks for the write-up, Chief. That was good. Very detailed. Really good.
That's all I have. I was hoping to take 10 minutes. I didn't do a very good job.
I think that obviously this is a first blush response to questions that were raised 2 weeks ago. I think that we can use this information and the questions and the answers as we go through subsequent budget cycles to dig down and evaluate some of the deeper underlying questions to validate whether or not we're comparing apples to apples, the benefits, the costs. Are there better ways of doing things? To make those decisions on the fly is dangerous.
Or this late in the budget process.
And irresponsible. So.
No, and that's a great point. If the council wants us to look further into contracting out some of these services, we can approach these groups and we can have a more detailed discussion to bring back to you for a decision point.
I think it's more being aware of total costs. For example, as you were talking about an ambulance service with paramedics kind of subsidizes some of the other costs of the fire department. And if you take that component away, you're burning an extra $24,000 somehow.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's the look at what goes on inside the ambulance when you have a full-scale paramedic versus when you have a contract agency with a different set of people. What's happening in the ambulance as they're traveling from point of origin to the hospital.
That's right.
But another cost that needs to be looked at is, well, what are we paying to house and to provide the equipment and the structure for the ambulance? I mean, if we want to be even-handed, we really have to look at everything in order to make a statement as to whether what we're doing is cheaper, more expensive, a wash. I mean, that's the level of analysis that would need to take place.
Can I address that just real quick? Just when we broke down the cost, we did take into account that we don't have an ambulance lease now. If we did away with this, we did make the assumption that they still need a bay to operate out of. Right. Whether Gold Cross doesn't have stations per se, so part of the contract would be that we have a space for them in our station. So does that mean a smaller building? We don't necessarily think so. We think it'd be the same. So we did not put that cost into the analysis.
Did you cover that Provo and St. George were contracting out just for transport?
Well, so St. George's, they're all in with Gold Cross. And so Gold Cross provides their EMS service. They're one of the few cities that actually does that. So St. George and Salt Lake has a little bit more of a hybrid, where a lot of times they do have a little bit of a partnership where one of the firefighters, paramedics, will be part of the ambulance run when they're going to the hospital to help assist. So there's a little bit more hybrid. St. George is more of a, we got 2 guys here, you get people in there, and we're going to send them off. Provo is theirs just as a transport, and that's hospital to hospital or nursing home to hospital. We don't have hospitals in our community, so we don't worry about that. We have one assisted living center or a senior center, and I don't know if do we transport out of that? If we do, it's not very often.
But Gold Cross does too.
They do, yes.
So
I mean, that's a service that the nursing home can contract with Gold Cross to say, we want to provide this service that if we have somebody that needs to go to the hospital, we're going to call Gold Cross instead of Pleasant Grove City.
Scott, what I was really trying to say was, it's not as simple as just throwing numbers together and saying the council wants you to go look at outsourcing something.
Yeah.
Or they've decided not to outsource something. To really make a decision like that, the research has to be done thoroughly. And then you come together and look at the research and say, what is the right thing to do.
That's right.
And at this point, we don't have that level of research to make a decision to
That's right.
say, act one way or act another.
That's right.
And broadly speaking, my sense from the public is that's the message that they want us to think about and consider. I took a lot of their questions as rhetorical. You know, how are we doing the kinds of research, maybe in some ways modeling for us how council and staff could be looking forward to the future and planning for these kinds of issues. And to that extent, it's a point well taken. I think we need to do our homework and really be the ones originating the questions and making sure we're vetting on a deep level. So I take it as a challenge to all of us to be more proactive, I guess, in that regard.
That's great. That's great.
Research is excellent. Thank you.
I have a question. This
Yeah.
is probably a dumb question, but maybe it is asked. So if we went with the ambulance, the Gold
Cross.
whatever
Yeah.
it is, where is the ambulance?
So they would be parked in our station. Yeah.
So we would still have to provide a physical place
Right, so,
for both the ambulance and for the whoever's driving it.
and then we'd have to house the ambulance people? Or would our?
Do you know how St. George does that?
Or-
Park them on a street corner.
Do they? So they don't even house them. They just kind of park them in a parking lot, and wait for a call.
Somewhere in there. with the station.
Well, it is a warmer climate.
Are so the people that drive, the ambulance people are there, or do we provide the
I think we do the same
wonderful
thing.
people?
They put them on a street corner, or they just run it on a station.
Chief, maybe you can explain, I think in your, when you talked about this 2 in, 2 out, go cross, they're not cross-trained, they can't go
They
into a
don't
fire.
fight fire. They don't do anything other than package and transport.
They just arrive, pick up, they can't like ours, dual role. They can't be there to assist.
They don't take part as a firefighter in any way. They're just EMS, package and transport.
Can they like inject you with stuff? No, what I.
Can they administer medication?
Yes.
They offer every level of service, from a basic service to paramedic service.
Okay. I've just seen ours in
Depending on
action.
what you're willing to pay for, what the systems you're willing to pay for.
So are we giving staff direction to get more research on these issues?
I think that we should look at each one carefully, but I think that we need to be cognizant of the fact that it was Chief Thomas during his interviews that said, you know, what we have when it comes to fire safety rules is hands-on experience that's been collected over 100 years and compiled. Pleasant Grove has arrived to where it is today by compiling its actions of city councils and citizens over some kind of period of time. It's not something that we just unwind all of a sudden on the spur of the moment because there's a question. It needs to be researched more thoroughly before we can make any determination on what the right course of action should be. So I think that for purposes of tonight, I don't think we're in a place to give staff a direction specifically to any of these items. I can take this into our council study session and we look at that and see if there are parts of the budget that we want to explore more fully. How are we going to fund streets beyond the 1.7 billion? Where's that money going to come from? Those are real questions that we have to struggle with. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Appreciate it. Can we take a little bio break? Thank you.
Strawberry break.
Second.
Let's have these strawberries right up here on the podium. That's great.
I'll write something.
Come and grab.
Where's
Who brought the strawberries?
There's a napkin.
And Bunch haven't had no bats.
Big Sid.
Wait, who was that?
The Lord. What was the?
Yes,
I do wonder if sometimes.
Can't figure out how to get to the strawberry.
I'm almost there. Just the big one. I know, I just need to make sure I know which one.
It has the least amount of chocolate on it. That has the least amount of chocolate on it.
Oh, you don't like the chocolate on it?
Very good. Delicious. Meditation is like a drug. Okay, what else? And we're talking, oh yeah. I didn't really know he was there, but his wife married this woman. So we go over there. His wife,
It's good. I only want to be here.
Don't mind me, I'm just trying to increase my step count. Work off the strawberry.
Darker the better. Semi-sweet, dark chocolate.
Well, see, that's the deal. I'm extra sweet, so I need that semi-sweet. You're extra sour, you need that white, sweet white.
I'm so sweet.
Hey, now, you know who you're talking to. I know you.
I really don't like
Yeah, thank you.
If it's a six, they just.
Actually, I would. Robert is good. Regardless of what
You know, like when you're having Where are you? Yeah.
So I'll put big thing is,
every day.
Okay, I think we're all back. Item E, 10E, is to consider for adoption a resolution 2015-019 approving and adopting the Pleasant Grove City fiscal year 2015-2016 budget. The comprehensive fee schedule and the Pleasant Grove City Redevelopment Agency budget are included in the final budget, and adopting the 2015-2016 certified tax rate of 0.001875 and providing for an effective date.
Okay, so I was just going to say what you just said. I don't really have anything to add to it. We do need to, I just received what our certified tax rate is today. So anybody who's not familiar, that's a number that's calculated with the county and the state. They get together to kind of say, since property values went up a little bit last year, what should the rate be to kind of give the city the same revenue? So like last year, our property tax rate was 0.001997, and it's gone down to 0.001875, which kind of says that generally speaking in the city, property rates have gone up about a little over 6%. So the property tax rate is decreasing to compensate for that. So
wait, say that last sentence again. The property tax.
So the way property, most people don't realize this, and it's a little bit, how they calculate it is fairly complicated, but the simple explanation is every year the county and the state get together to give us a certified tax rate. That tax rate is generally meant to say if property values appreciated during this year, we're going to lower the property tax rate to compensate for that. So they're trying to say, regardless of what property values do, how to the dollars that come in stay the same. That kind of makes sense.
Because the idea behind property taxes is it's revenue neutral.
Okay.
So
we don't reap the benefit, nor do we lose if property values go up and down. So they just adjust the certified rate in order to make accommodation for that.
Another way to put it is the property tax, the property owner doesn't pay more and doesn't pay less.
what complicates it is that's for the city as a whole. Not everybody's property goes up the same. So this is, property values generally went up about 6% based on county assessment. If your property only went up 2 or 3%, your property taxes might go down. But if your property taxes went up 8 or 9%, your property taxes might still go up. So
Do I have to divulge?
You do not. Actually, anyone can look it up on mine though.
I'm sure every realtor here is
Really?
doing that.
So at this point, Tina, with resolution 2015-019, we're just doing the city part.
Yes.
The redevelopment agency will do
The budget,
item
the
11.
budget's all
This is the
together.
budget.
Just the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the budget's included. The RDA budget is in the full budget.
All right. Then what's the purpose of number 11?
It's to do the interlocal agreement for the
No,
Doterra.
Okay, so separate. All right, any discussion on item 2000 or item E? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make the motion that we adopt resolution 2015-019, approving and adopting the Pleasant Grove City's fiscal year 2015-2016 budget. A comprehensive fee schedule and the Pleasant Grove City Redevelopment Agency budget are included in the final budget, and adopting the 2015-2016 certified tax rate of 0.001875 and providing an effective date.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Sid, a second by Eric, by voice Ben.
Yes.
Sid,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item F is to consider for adoption a resolution 2015-020 supporting HB 362, which authorizes a 0.25% local option general sales tax to be dedicated to transportation and encouraging Utah County to submit the proposal to voters in the November 3rd, 2015 general election, and encouraging voters to support the proposal and providing for an effective date.
This is the resolution that we discussed last week, Mayor and Council. It is a resolution that has been proposed and circulated by the Utah League of Cities and Towns to the various municipalities throughout the state in response to the passage of HB 362 in the last legislative session, which provided for an opportunity for a local option sales tax to be enacted on a countywide basis, providing for transportation funds for local cities and municipalities. If you'll remember, last week when we talked about it, I was instructed to take out the part that said that we encouraged it to be on the November 2015 election. That was changed after the mayor attended a meeting this last week where the mayors got together of Utah County, and I believe he can expound on this, but the decision was made that we would, in fact, support the idea of putting it on this year's ballot and encourage the county to do so. Also included in here is a encouragement. We're expressing our support for the idea and also encouraging our citizens to vote for the local option sales tax if it does become a ballot issue. Do you have any questions about this?
What about the statement of the mass transit piece?
I took that out.
Thank you. Questions for Tina?
Because we
Discussion.
covered this a lot last
Pardon
week. We covered it last week as
We
well.
did.
Yeah.
On the topic of discussion, I'll express some of my reservations. I don't intend to vote for this resolution. I like the even numbered sections, section 2, section 4. I like the encourage submission of the proposal to voters. I'm not a fan of section 1, section 3, the ones where we encourage people to support it. We say that we support it. I'm not sure that I'm at a point where I'm ready to say that I support this proposal. My concern, of course, and I think we've heard this many times, is that, you know, 0.1 goes to the cities and 0.15 goes to the UTA and other places. And so I would rather see a different arrangement where we had more of this revenue going towards what we really need. There are a couple of little typographical errors I'm sure that will get fixed, but there's a point in here where it says the amount we spend is Pleasant Grove on the city is a number that's missing a digit. So I recall in my earlier review, but I don't intend to vote for this particular provision of the written. I don't like the sections that are odd numbered. I like the even ones much better.
Do you want to propose a substitute?
I would, but let's finish the discussion and I may make an alternate motion to remove a couple more sections before renumber and remove sections 1 and 3 at a minimum.
There was a lot of discussion at last Thursday's mayor's meeting with MAG and COG and MPO as to the makeup of what the legislature had dealt out as far as the option. I'm in favor of personally as much transportation money as possible going to local roads. That's what I'd like to see.
Me too.
But that's not an option that the legislature of the state of Utah gave us. What they gave us was the option of all or nothing. So unless the people of the state have the opportunity and avail themselves of the opportunity to step up and vote on this ballot measure, if we were to return to the state next year and argue the point that we need more money, they would say, well, what did you do with the tool that we gave you last year to raise funding? And if we did not do anything to avail ourselves of using that funding, then the answer will likely be no. And the other point that we discussed as mayors were we need to look at this as having 40% of something rather than 100% of nothing. And at the moment, we are in desperate need of financing to get our roads fixed. So while I agree with you that I am more inclined to support something that is 100% for local roads, I don't wish to cut off the opportunity to let the citizens vote for what's in front of them that the legislature's provided.
And I have no intention of cutting off the citizens' right to vote. And I'm comfortable, as I said, with sections like Section 2 that encourage submission of this proposal to the voters of Utah County. I just am inclined to put it to the people without any bias or advancement of a specific support or encouragement.
We could do that. And really, it's pretty simple. What we'd be saying is we encourage the county to put it on the ballot.
And the people to go vote.
And the people to go
however
vote.
they want.
Right.
However they think is best in their best interest. So that would be my recommendation. So it's even more reduction. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th whereas clause, with the missing digit in the number.
Yeah, I saw that. We can fix that.
But yeah, I would suggest to the council, I haven't formalized it as a motion yet in case there's more discussion to have, but if I were to make the motion, I would omit sections 1 and 3 and then renumber the remaining sections.
I would just note that, of course, the council can make whatever revisions you feel comfortable with and pass whatever you want to say in this resolution. But the original purpose of the resolution was to let our legislators know that we indeed do support this, so, and put it on the ballot. The idea was the league was going to use the resolutions, the combined resolutions from all the cities in the state to show that they do have broad support. So if we take the support part out, it sort of negates part of their initial purpose, which is fine if that's what you want to do. I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
I agree with the mayor. I would love for this to be on the ballot, and I would love the voters to vote this.
I agree with the explanation Mike's had with the experience that he's been in those meetings and such and has a feeling for what the other mayors are thinking, the best direction for us to go.
What is it? How much money? $500,000?
$374,000. That's the estimate given to us.
Yeah, that's based on current tax revenues, sales tax revenues.
That's a block.
The assumption is that would go up slightly as sales tax revenues.
And the gas tax will go up
Yes,
over time as
the
well.
gas tax being changed now, it's indexed a little differently, so that there is a growth component now in the gas tax.
So, do you make a motion?
Well, is there any further discussion?
I'm okay.
Good. Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution supporting resolution 2015-020, supporting House Bill 362, which authorizes, or is it authorized? Oh, yeah. 362 authorized a 0.25% local option general sales tax to be dedicated to transportation and encouraging Utah counties to submit the proposal to voters and encouraging voters to support the proposal.
Is this where we need to change?
Yeah, you need to include the November 3rd, 2015
And
election.
encouraging voters
And the November 3rd general
in the November 3rd general election and encourage 2015. Anybody else? And encouraging voters to support the proposal and providing for an effective date.
I have a motion by Diana.
Second.
Who seconded
Me.
it? Sid. Okay, we have a second by Sid. By voice, Diana,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Sid,
Yes.
Ben.
No.
Okay, motion carries 4-1.
And we'll make that typographical error correction.
I'll stand for the next item. Proclamation.
Okay, next item G, to consider for approval a proclamation declaring July 1st through July 7, 2015 as local first Utah's Independence Week.
So this resolution or proclamation is basically a declaration of support for an organization which is promoting the idea that we should try to purchase and buy items made locally in Utah before purchasing items that are made outside of the state of Utah. It's a proclamation that we actually adopted last year as well. They declare a certain week to be, local first week, and this just expresses our support for that idea. The proclamation was sent to the mayor first, and then he forwarded on to me to ask to have it put on the agenda. So.
How do we propose to advertise that? How do we get that out?
I think we just send this back to the Utah Local First group.
And they do a very good job of promoting the idea.
Right.
They're marketing themselves well.
And if I'm not mistaken, even a lot of the grocery stores now advertise the local first logo. So
Well, who's the Utah Zone?
That's another organization that both assists and participates in with businesses that are producing products in the state of Utah.
I don't think they're competing organizations. I think they're symbiotic.
Should I make the motion?
Okay.
Make the motion to approve a proclamation declaring July 1st, July 7th, 2015 as local first Utah's Independence Week.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Sid, second by Diana, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item H is to consider for adoption of resolution 2015-021, authorizing the mayor to declare a 2000 Chevy Impala and a 2003 Crown Vic as surplus and direct they be disposed of according to the city's policy for disposing of surplus property. Any comment, Chief? What's it gonna
They've
cost
seen
us
their
to get
day.
rid of these?
It's gonna actually cost us a little money because we have to take some striping and police equipment off. They've been used as cars for volunteers and police service. They just went through the ring. I mean, they were patrol cars, they've been everything. It's unfortunate. We put them along. The Crown Vic, we just put a brand new transmission in. And then about 4 months later, the engine blew in it, and they're estimating about $5,000 to fix it, and it's just not worth the car. Car's not worth that much.
Maybe put them in a museum or something.
What's that?
Maybe put them in a museum. We can get retired.
Yeah.
They usually pay for
Well, they don't make the Crown Vic anymore, so it is, that's it.
It's a collector's item.
My twins want it, so let's just get rid of it really quick.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make the motion that we adopt Resolution 2015-021, authorizing you to declare a 2000 Chevy Impala and a 2003 Crown Vic as surplus and directing that they be disposed of according to city's policy for disposing of surplus property.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Ben, second by Eric, by voice Diana,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Sid,
Yes.
Ben.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, motion carries. Item I has been continued. Item J, to consider for adoption a resolution 2015-022, authorizing the mayor to enter into an interlocal agreement with Pleasant Grove City Redevelopment Agency for tax increment participation in the 1300 West Community Development Project area and providing for an effective date.
We were going over all of our doTERRA documentation to make sure that we had everything situated, and as we were reviewing that, we found that the city and the RDA did not enter into an interlocal agreement between each other. So the city council represents the city, and then when we adjourn and go into an RDA meeting, then you're the RDA board. In order for the city to dedicate part of our property tax, the new property tax generated towards the incentive rebate back to doTERRA, the city has to actually enter into an agreement with the RDA. So this resolution is the city agreeing that we are going to participate in the RDA agreement, and then we'll need to have you convene as an RDA board, and then you'll need to adopt the same agreement. Is that right, Kathy? As an RDA board. So
is there a different language in here for that?
You should have an RDA agenda that has that.
It's a different number of resolution.
you have the RDA agenda.
Green paper.
Thank you. Okay. Green paper, see? Work.
So what happens if we don't do this? The whole world end?
Well,
Yes.
we renege on our agreement. We've had the deal in place for a couple of years, and we've had, the school district has signed on, the county. Obviously, the city is part of that. We just missed the paperwork part of that. We did all of our interlocals, I want to say last October. And as we were reviewing this, we had the discussion of who has a copy of the city interlocal, and we couldn't find it. We looked back through minutes and realized the day that we did all the interlocals, we forgot to do this one.
No, I'm okay with this one. Okay. Any further discussion on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion for the adoption of resolution 2015-022, authorizing the mayor to enter into an interlocal agreement with Pleasant Grove City Redevelopment Agency, RDA, for tax increment participation in the 1300 West Community Development Project area and providing for an effective date.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Eric, a second by Diana, by voice Ben.
Yes.
Sid,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Diana.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn our, is that the right word? Adjourn.
Or do we just?
Adjourn our city council meeting and reconvene as the Pleasant Grove City Redevelopment Agency.
So moved.
Seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. We are now convened as the Pleasant Grove City Redevelopment Agency. Is there any further discussion? This is
Just say ditto. This is now the
This is now
RDA.
resolution number 2015-01 RDA. Any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Go ahead.
All right, Mayor, I make a motion for adoption of resolution 2015-01 RDA for the governing body of Pleasant Grove City Redevelopment Agency, authorizing the chair of the RDA to enter into an interlocal agreement with Pleasant Grove City for tax increment participation in the 1300 West Community Development Project area and providing for an effective date.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Eric, a second by Diana. Ben?
Yes.
Sid?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Motion carries. A motion to adjourn as the Pleasant Grove City Redevelopment Agency and reconvene as Pleasant Grove City Council.
So moved.
So seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are now back as the Pleasant Grove City Council. We have nothing on item 13. Our next meeting will be June 23rd, that's 2 weeks from now. And there will be a joint meeting between the Pleasant Grove City Council and the Planning Commission. And other than announcing that, I don't see anything to discuss at this time. Is that right? Okay.
I'll get it to you.
All right.
Planning Commission in charge of treats.
Yes.
I heard that.
We've asked the planning commission if they have any items. At this point, they don't. So we're just going to really convene as a regular city council meeting. We do have a couple items that need to be addressed. One of them is our the Manila sewer discussion on who's going to pay for what for the sewer. So that's going to be a big discussion. And so if the planning commission really doesn't have any items, we can maybe consider that we can cancel that portion of it. I mean, they're more than welcome to come and participate, but that's just a suggestion.
Was that noticed?
It's noticed right now as a joint meeting. We could renotice it if we want to. I'm saying that if the planning commission, I mean, they can come and we can have the joint meeting and we'll just carry on regular business as a city council.
Let's just cancel that meeting and reschedule it as a regular city council meeting.
And I don't.
We were going to ask the planning commission this Thursday again.
Oh, you
We
still
sent
want
an
to check?
email out, but we didn't get a response out.
Ah,
I thought
okay.
in the meeting when we have everybody, maybe we'll have.
Yeah, so if there's
So
no
we still have
response.
time to either hold it or cancel it before we have to publish the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, that works. Okay, neighborhood and staff business. Libby, anything? Okay. Ken?
Nothing.
David? Dion? Lynn? No. Dave?
Just to encourage you, if you have specific questions about some of the subjects that we talked about tonight, please stop by my office.
Okay.
I think we could have a great discussion if you wanted.
That's great. Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, just real quick, I had a letter written from the Utah Community Credit Union. It says, "Dear Chief Smith, on behalf of Utah Community Credit Union, we would like to thank Pleasant Grove Police for their prompt response to the May 4th bank robbery. Please convey our sincere gratitude to the officers who responded to the branch and to the detectives working behind the scenes to capture the individuals responsible. The professionalism and compassion shown by your officers is very reassuring to our employees on an otherwise traumatic day. It was signed by all of their employees." And the rest of the letter.
Anything else, Mike?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Sherry?
The computer programming class, we ended up getting something like 46 kids. And a lot of them brought their own, but they did have to double up on computers. Things are just, going well. And we did just, May was 6 months beginning the previous year on checkouts. So we're continuing to grow.
Awesome.
We can tell they're in session because we have no parking now.
I know.
We know that the summer programs are doing well.
And I have vowed not to use the library's driveway to come in and out of city. I go around.
We have talked about remodeling that.
Yes, it's a terrible driveway.
Okay, anything else, Sherry?
No.
All right, Dean? Scott?
I don't want to be out of turn here a little bit, but I kind of want
Okay,
to.
Tina?
Yeah. Maybe let's go to Tina and Dagan and come back.
Okay.
Just to note that I did hire a legal assistant this week. Yesterday was her first day. So that position is filled. We are digging out from not having one for a month with lots of piles and piles of paper, but hopefully we'll get caught up. And then just to complain that no one ever writes me nice letters. Like,
Quit throwing people in jail.
Venture the job. Thank you. Nothing? Thanks, Dagan. Scott?
Can we just do a mic check? I know, Mayor, when you talk, we can hear you well.
Test.
Well, can you?
Check, check.
Well,
Hello?
so how about if we put them a little bit closer in front of you? And then maybe if each of you individually can talk, just how you normally talk to make sure, because the other option is we get you all goosenecks.
So is it
Right.
better to have it turned on?
Yeah.
We'd like to thank you for your service.
The tendency we have from council is you guys are leaning back in your seats talking.
Yeah.
And so we just invested in creating the sound, but we're only as good, and we have some staff issues too of actually talking into the mic. But I just, because these are proximity mics, that's why I couldn't hear Eric very well, so maybe one at a time, I don't know. Just talk.
Testing, mic check, testing. Can you hear me?
Okay, yours
Now?
is the greatest.
So I need a new one?
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to figure that one out.
Okay, so if I'm just talking about like this,
Talk like an orange.
okay, I am gonna say something actually, so just check my mic while I'm talking. Can we just do the dance of joy on the 18% sales tax?
It's only 17.1%.
Okay, I've been saying 18%.
Okay, say
Way
it.
to just plummet me down to the earth. Anyway.
Yours carries quite fine.
Thank you for keeping us on topic. Ben?
Testing, yeah, I think you guys are.
And the mayor works really well.
Testing.
Yours isn't as
Yeah.
loud.
Hello, how are you?
And yours isn't as either.
I hate to think this is by design, but.
It's not.
I wonder if,
Probably
I'm
in the
just
right
kidding.
place, but we have three of them.
okay,
Just leave
so,
them where they are,
Yeah,
so we
leave
can
them where
see
they are
which
so
number
we
they
know
are.
which ones.
yeah, and then we'll,
So we won't pick up the mics tonight. We'll leave them and you guys figure out which one they are.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Eric, did you have anything?
Strawberry Days coming up very
Yes,
quickly.
very good.
Excited. Lots of- oh,
I didn't skip you on purpose. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You just didn't have a mic and you weren't testing. So.
I'm very testy.
Kathy,
Don Paz emailed me today and he has withdrawn from being a candidate. So we're down to 7. So we still have a primary to eliminate one. That's that.
anything else? Thank you.
Tom Hall's a good guy.
He is,
Yeah.
and thank you for staying late Friday to accept people's applications.
No one came in, but I had a lot of work done.
And you stayed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Eric.
Strawberry Days. Since I'm new to this, rodeo parade, show up when we know
Okay,
on the rodeo.
7:45.
What's that?
6:45.
47? What gate you guys going in the back?
The one closest to the restroom on the east side,
Okay.
almost the double gates.
Alright.
Head straight back past the bulls, turn right around the machine or the big thing that's standing there for the bulls. When you see the ambulance, you're in the right place.
Okay. There we go.
That's about right, huh?
I would like to have a count for how many are riding in the cart. How many are planning on coming to the ride around
Are you talking about at the rodeo?
at the rodeo?
Every night or,
Yeah, every night.
well, I'll miss
Okay.
one night, but
All right. I think it depends on what cart they were thinking of having with us. Okay. All right.
Cowboy hats? No.
I don't have your beers.
We don't actually. Don't worry about that.
I actually, okay.
I'm wearing my cowboy hat, sorry.
Good.
Sorry.
Did you have
Are you
anything
I'm
else?
done now.
Okay, and this has been a lot of fun and a lot of exhaustion. We have lots of events. The week is packed, so pick your fun and go have fun. I have your shirt that you'll be wearing in the cart when you go around or to any event that you go to. On a personal note, I have celebrated the week by reading Mildred Such's and Beth Olson's Histories of Pleasant Grove.
Wow.
And I'm so proud to be from Pleasant Grove. Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't know, it may come to me later.
Okay. Ben?
Yeah, I have one thing I'd like to let the public and the rest of my colleagues and staff know about. One of the things that I've been working on, an initiative kind of behind the scenes a little bit, but with great support from the staff, is an effort in conjunction with my responsibilities this year over economic development and as a vision that I campaigned on when I ran for city council. I wanted to see us implement something that Richard Bradford had recommended called Pleasant Grove Ambassadors, the business program. And so I've talked about a dozen residents that have very generously and amazing talented people willing to help out in various ways have said that they would be part of that initial group of Pleasant Grove Ambassadors to Business. We've been working on a logo with a volunteer. And so we're moving in a way that we can hopefully in a few weeks be ready to present some names and to say this is something we'd like to see happen as an effort to use volunteers in the community in a similar capacity to the way that we do in the fire and police department, so effectively using volunteers. So this Pleasant Grove Ambassadors to Business, I hope, would be able to work with our Chamber of Commerce, work with our economic development team within the city and help us really make sure we leave no stone unturned in terms of economic development in the city. So
Congratulations, very good.
I'm excited about it.
Anything else, Ben?
No.
Okay. Sid? Nothing? Okay. Cindy? Okay. I have one thing to celebrate. Tomorrow makes 5 years that Water Gardens was created or in business. Normally you go bankrupt within that time. And I'm feeling pretty safe at the moment, so hopefully it doesn't change.
That's such great. Knock on something.
Maybe my family is single-handedly keeping you.
I know.
You certainly are. But just to let you know that it is possible to start a business in Pleasant Grove. It is possible to have support. We've served over 1 million people, and that's not unique individuals, but we've served over 1 million people in those 5 years. I'm glad we started in PG. We now have a manufacturing plant right there in the theater. We're selling kettle corn and large bags of popcorn into 17 stores, grocery stores here in Salt Lake and Utah County, and we're on par to get a fairly significant contract, which will put us in most major grocery stores along the Wasatch Front. So go Pleasant Grove. I think it's great.
What would the popcorn and kettle corn be called?
Water Gardens.
Is it?
Yeah,
Cool.
you'll see it. You'll see it at the
With the
parade
logo and
too.
stuff?
Yep.
Cool.
And the golf tournament. So
And the golf
they've
tournament.
also, they're donating that. Very nice.
Any festivities tomorrow? So
You know, I think I'm gonna go change light bulbs in the street lights that are in the parking lot. Okay, calendar wise, you know what, we have Strawberry Days. I think that's the biggest thing that we can possibly focus on. And then there's also some chamber activities that you've scheduled for us with showing appreciation to business and also to the volunteers, Scott, with the Strawberry Days committee. So hopefully everybody's able to make it to those.
I think I've got RSVPs from most everybody.
Okay. All right, we're going to need an executive session. So this one is for to discuss character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual.
I make the motion that we enter into executive session, for a reason right by there. I'll second it.
Okay, motion